Morning, everybody. We're going to take a few minutes here before we get started. There was a misclick, unfortunately, with the live event that was the invite that was sent out previously that locked externals out of the event. So we are trying to get that updated and sent back out. So please bear with us while we try to get that out there, and we'll give a few minutes here to get some more people in here, and we'll start. All right. Looks like we're getting some more people on here. So we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Welcome, everybody, to our March CAD Users Group live event. Thank you for joining us this morning. Hopefully everybody's doing well today. My name's Mark McLeod. I'm the CAD Services Manager here at ODOT. We are recording this event, and we will make it available for later viewing off of our wiki page and our CAD support page. We do have live chat available, so please type any questions you may have during the meeting, and we'll field those as the meeting progresses. And then if you do put in a question that doesn't get immediately responded to, it's probably because we're holding it to a later time in the meeting. So also a quick note for those who would like to receive CPD credits for this, we will be providing that. So look for that in an email after the meeting concludes. Just a couple quick notes on that. If you've joined the meeting anonymously, we cannot verify that you've attended the meeting, so we're not able to send that CPD certificate. So, you know, if you've joined anonymously, please rejoin the meeting with your email and all that stuff. That way we can verify that you did attend, and we can send you the CPDs. The other thing is, I know some people like to get together in a big room and watch the event as a group. Unfortunately, we can't, independently verify everybody that's watching if you're not logged into the live event. So if you would like to receive a CPD credit, as an individual, then you'll have to join separately into the meeting. So just a quick overview for the agenda today. I'm going to start out with myself, talk about some CAD staff updates and some introductions to the staff. I'm going to do a quick overview of the ORD transition and some possible changes coming in the future, some up and coming events that we're going to be having as far as webinars go, and a discussion about our wiki page. And then JD is going to talk about ORD compatibility, and then the downgrading of the civil model tech preview. We're also going to discuss the item master refresh issues in the GenSum and some of the things we've been trying to work out there. He's also going to do a presentation on custom headwalls using parametric cells. And then Matt Iman's also going to be presenting today on profile grade feature definitions. And then we're going to have a discussion about updating the plan presentation as far as colors and some fonts. And then Eric Thomas will also be presenting today on cross-section annotations in ORD. So for myself, just some quick rundown of the things, introduction of the CADD staff and some new staff that we have on board now. Just some general updates as far as our office goes, some announcements and things like that. Like I said, a quick overview of the Open Roads Designer transition and some tweaks that might be coming for that. Discussion on the webinars that we're going to be opening up to consultants, and just a general look at our CAD resources on our wiki page. So just a kind of a quick rundown of our staff. We actually have most of the people attending the meeting today. Myself, CAD Services Manager. We also have Jack Kerster with us today. He's the ProjectWise Manager for our office. John Dursick, better known as JD, is with us also. He's going to be presenting today applications and Open Roads Development and Support. Matt Iban, also Open Roads Development and Support. Brandon Williams, he actually works with Jack, ProjectWise Administration and CAD IT support for our office. We also have Kyle Ince, who's been helping out and assisting with training in Open Roads Development and Support, as well as Eric Thomas, who is with us as a CAD consultant. And he will be with us for another year. So. And then I'd like to introduce you to our new staff. This is Tess Petros. He's going to be working with us in the Open Roads Development Support. He has 10 years of experience in civil and transportation design. He's done some lighting design, traffic control plans. He's worked on projects for the City of Columbus and ODOT. And then previously, prior to coming to ODOT, he worked at Dynatech on some projects. So wanted to mention that and welcome into our team. So just some general updates. CAD staff are still working from home. This is tentatively scheduled till May 28th. That is our return to work date, so back in the office. I know they're discussing possibly doing like this hybrid work environment, allowing us, to work from home and then also in the office, but we haven't really got anything further on that. So as of now, we're still working from home until that date. We will continue to have the CAD user group meetings via Teams live events. And that will continue until, obviously we get through this pandemic thing, what's going on in the office and getting everything kind of back to normal. The next CAD users group meeting is tentatively, and I underline that, scheduled for June 2nd, 2021. That may be adjusted as far as dates go, but I wanted to put that out there. That's what we have listed on our wiki page. Currently, we're still working on updating the sample plans for ORD. We've actually redesigned that web page for our sample plans in the L&D Volume 3. They're also looking at doing some modifications to the L&D Volume 3, actually all the volumes 1, 2, and 3 on the website to make that more web-based and user-friendly. So possibly look at changes coming to that in the future. So we've had some discussion. We do internal ORD webinars, and we were doing them on a monthly basis, and then we switched it to a bi-monthly basis. But we thought that, it was a good webinar. It's about an hour and a half, and it's strictly Open Roads Designer subject matter. And we thought it would be a good idea to open that up to consultants. So look for that in the coming months. Also, JD wanted me to mention that the the OHDOT standards, which is our Connect standards. An update was pushed out last night, so you should have got a notification that there was an update available now. So if you want to read more on what we updated, please check out the running update doc on our website. And I think that's been updated, hopefully. Also, wanted to throw out there, OTEC call for abstracts deadline is set for April 9th. There is a web link there to get to that. So if you would like to submit an abstract for OTEC this year, you can use that link. Also, Rachel Lewis, who is our administrator for the Office of CAD Mapping, wanted me to mention that if you would like to participate in an OTEC subcommittee, to contact her directly, and that's her email address. We're looking, as kind of internals and externals to work with us on the subcommittee for OTEC. So she did want me to put a plug in there for that. So if you'd like to be part of that, please email her. And something new that we're doing now is we're collaborating with the Great Lakes Bentley Users Group, and we actually have a webinar scheduled to present on April 14th. This is an 11:30. It's kind of an over a lunch hour webinar. That's the web address there. And it's the first one I think we're doing is just to kind of get to know ODOT. It's just going to be JD and myself doing the presentation. So we're going to kind of, touch on just our staff in general and talk about our, the resources available and things like that, and probably go into our standards and configuration a little bit. And I also wanted to put out there some analytics. We've been kind of behind the scenes, been kind of tracking our support requests, and right now we have over 1,200 support requests that's been submitted through our ticketing system, which is quite a bit. Here's some analytics that we've been recording. Obviously, Open Roads Designer Connect Edition is the big request. We've got like 73% of all tickets being submitted as targeted towards Open Roads Designer, and then obviously the other ones are pretty low as far as the older standards, the old ODAC CAD standards, and then our OHDOT standards, which is our Connect standards. And then this is kind of a breakdown of the areas of the ticketing itself. And you can notice here that drawing production is the highest within that as far as the ORD stuff goes. And then we get into corridors and then drainage and utilities. So this is something we've been tracking, so we can kind of target those specific areas that might need a little more, eyes on as far as, working with the standards and talking to Bentley and things that we need to try to, revise and fix and enhance as the product moves forward. And then this is something that I thought I'd put in here as far as like our closing of tickets and our open tickets, and then our awaiting on response. Right now we've closed 94% of our tickets, so we try to do that as quickly as we can. So Open Roads Designer transition. This hasn't changed as of yet, but I just wanted to highlight some of the stuff here. New projects started on or after July 1st of 2020 should be completed using Open Roads Designer. And this is obviously there if you don't have a waiver for your said project, right? Current projects started before July 1st should be completed in GeoPack Select Series, 4 or 10. This may have changed since the last time we talked about this, but the waiver process, we adjusted it to the end of the year for 2020. So if you need a project waiver, obviously this is past, but if you needed a project waiver for starting a project after that date for select series, you should be filed and approved before the project begins. The waiver should be filed with the ODOT project manager. So if you're working with a district to do a project, then the project manager for that at ODOT should be submitting that waiver. And I guess I wanted to highlight this date right here. This might be updated. And I say might loosely. This is something that we're discussing in our office right now. So if this would happen to change, then we will make an announcement on that. So I wanted to, I guess, put out there. I had a conversation with a consultant last week, and they were looking at doing some work for ODOT, and they don't use they don't use GeoPack. They were just using MicroStation to do their plan work, and moving forward into the Connect standards that we have, they wanted that, they had the impression that they were going to have to, go all out and purchase Open Roads Designer to do work. And I guess I wanted to throw out there that there's a kind of maybe a misconception that our OHDOT standards, which is our Connect standards, they're not just for Open Roads Designer, right? The OHDOT standards are configured for the Bentley Connect products, and they will work with like MicroStation Power Draft, and Open Roads Designer, right? So if you're a consultant and maybe you're not necessarily doing any civil functionality, civil features in the product, and you're only using MicroStation or MicroStation Power Draft, then you can still move forward to our Connect standards and still use those in a production environment. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. If you're still using the Select series and you don't, you have this idea of, well, I'm going to have to purchase Open Roads Designer to kind of move forward into Connect. That's not necessarily the case. This right here is, MicroStation and MicroStation Power Draft. Those products they do have Connect versions of that, and our standards will work with those. Now, I don't know if JD wants to chime in here as far as like our installer for that. I don't believe that we have that set up for Power Draft. Is that right, JD? Maybe he stepped away. Anyways, I don't know if you're having issues. If you have Power Draft and you need to install that, I would say, just give us a call and we can work with you as far as doing the installation and stuff on that.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the installer will still install the sync tool, and the sync tool will still work. The only part that it won't do is it doesn't set the custom configuration location.
Okay.
For those products. So I'm really looking at updating it to do all those, but that's literally just one line in the configuration.
Okay.
So anyone who has problems with that, if they're running those software, just reach out to me and I can tell you. But it's just one line that it doesn't do.
Okay, great. Thank you. Obviously, with Bentley's support policy, this is something else that, kind of ties to this Open Roads Designer transition is, Bentley's thrown out there that their support policy, they've actually updated this date as well. So if you're using a Select series earlier than 10, support is effectively discontinued. Select Series 10 has full support now, but Bentley's expected to discontinue support on that January 1st of 2022, so January 1st of next year. And then obviously the Connect Edition is going to be the continuously supported platform. So that's one of the other reasons why this transition is kind of taking place. Is we don't want to get into a situation where our software is not going to work anymore. So webinars. So we've been, like I mentioned, we've been doing monthly webinars for internals and at ODOT, and we've been doing them on a monthly basis for the last year. And those webinar recordings are actually available on our wiki page, and I'll show that here at the end. But so we've had several of them. We've done them on the widening, resurfacing, right-of-way parcels, advanced templates, intersection details. You can see the various webinars that we've had there. So if you'd like to check out any of those, please go to our website and our wiki page, and you can view those. And here's some of the additional ones that we've put out there as well. So the next webinar, we haven't really got a topic for yet. It'll be announced later, but that'll be happening either later this month or sometime in April. So just be looking for that announcement to come out. We will use the DRC email list. So if you're signed up on that list, then you will get a notification when that webinar is going to be happening. And if you want to register for that, we will make that available through the DRC announcement. And also, I would assume that JD will also do an announcement through the Windows app that we have available as well. And then just a kind of a quick rundown on the resources. Obviously, this is our CAD services support page. There's a link there to it. Everything's available here. We've actually kind of updated the look of this a little bit. ODOT's kind of redesigned its main website, and some of that look is kind of filtering into some of the sub pages. So this may look a little bit different. As I showed the analytics earlier with our support tickets, this right here is kind of capturing all that data, right? So if you're submitting a CAD service request, this is really the best way to do it for our office. So when you fill this out, this is kind of creating that analytics on the back end when we receive it. So if you need any type of a request done, for any type of issue you might be having, please take a look at this and fill it out. And this is our wiki page that we have available on the Bentley communities. We've been posting and linking everything that we have as far as training, resources, installation solutions. I mean, there's a bunch of different topics on there that we try to put. And then I mentioned the CAD webinars. That is actually under our training resources section. We also announce any upcoming events. We've done a bunch of different supplemental videos showing specific things for like Open Roads Designer. I think I counted, we had over 100 videos available on our YouTube channel that's just specifically Open Roads Designer. So I did also want to mention that we do have a YouTube channel that has those videos on there as well. So I wanted to just pop over here to our website. Now this is the ODOT front page now, so it has been updated and changed. If you go to doing business and then down to engineering, and then under here it's the Office of CAD Mapping Services. And then when you get to this, you'll have to go to this launch, and then this takes you to kind of our SharePoint area where you can go into CAD services, and then this is our CAD services page. And like I said, it may look a little different. The link to the wiki is on here, right here under training. So if you go here to the wiki page, this will take you to the Bentley communities, unless they happen to be down right now. There it goes. Yeah. So we have, like I said, the training resources here, which has our webinars on there, and various training guides, supplemental videos, custom apps. We even, like I said, we post the recordings for the user groups that we're having like right now. Those will be available on there. Let's see. Yeah, right here. Guessing this is a little slow because of the VPN. Yeah, so there's a kind of the previous ones we have listed. So I would, you know, if you've never seen this before, I'd recommend going out and checking it out. Like I said, we try to update this on a regular basis. Just kind of wanted to point that out. Also, we added some links here for L&D Volume 3 and the sample plans. This has actually been kind of reformatted here as well for the sample plan locations. So those are available. And like I said, we're working to try to update these to the new border style and look for the new ORD plans. But just wanted to kind of touch on that. So I will turn it over to JD at this point and stop sharing here.
All right, here, let me share my screen. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm a little flustered from the bad link here. I think I answered everyone's emails. Again, I apologize for that one. I'll stop sending out emails to everyone. But okay, so next thing I want to talk about was ORD compatibility. I feel like it is just something that's going to be around for a while here, and we're going to try to address it every time to make sure that everyone is in full understanding of how the compatibility issues happen. So what you need to pay attention to is the version number of ORD. So when the second number changes, that is when the civil schema has changed. And so when the civil schema has changed, that is what's causing the compatibility issues between the releases. So I kind of made a quick little page here to kind of showcase, you know, if you're inside the same section, that means there's no compatibility issues like between 2020 release 1 and 2020 release 2. Okay. So hopefully everyone is now aware of this compatibility issue. So what does that mean? You have to really take care. I don't think anyone has a perfect answer for how to handle this, especially for large firms, you know, working on multiple DOTs. But the one thing to guys just know is that pretty much the problem only happens when you're on the older version. So moving up to a newer version, when you're on that new version, you won't really see any problems. It's anyone running previous versions. So the second you open a file that contains civil data, that in a newer version, that file gets updated, and now anyone with the older version, and they won't be able to open it to edit it. They can open it read only. So hopefully that was clear. We have tried to take steps to ease this pain, but there's no, I guess, perfect solution other than everyone upgrading, right? So in our sync tool, you can set the version control. So right here in that sync tool, you set that version control to the compatibility version that you guys are running. So what I mean by that is right now in this drop down, you see ORD 2019 release 1. You will never see an ORD 2019 release 2. The only time you're going to see a version control come in here is when this number changes. So the next one you'll see will be 2020 release 3. I kind of wish I would have used 10.9, 10.8 rather than the name, but a couple years ago, Bentley was pushing this name hard when I wrote this, and they said this would be the easiest way for everyone to understand things. But I think now we see that the version number is really what we care about the most. So there's a little reasoning why I didn't use the numbering, but hopefully everyone understands what's going on there. So when you set a version control here, if we release anything in a newer version than that, you won't get that update. And that's what keeps it compatible with whatever you set there. So just keep an eye out for that. We have not released anything past 2019 release 1 yet. That's why you won't see one in there yet. But hopefully that is clear to everyone. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Another thing I wanted to talk about as we're talking about compatibility issues is the tech preview that was added into 2020 release 3 of ORD. It's the downgrade civil model option. So I know you guys can't click on these links, but when we send the PDF out, these are links to the Bentley's Open Roads wiki page. So they have videos on these, but I also have the next slide. I'm going to kind of walk through same thing these videos go over. But all right, so let me just play this video and we can see what the downgrade civil model can do. So we'll play this here. And so I'm just in ORD, I'm in the latest update. I'm going to go back to the backstage and there's now a downgrade civil model option. So when you click that, you're going to get the tech preview thing. So fair warning, it is a technology preview. So you hit OK. And it will open up this little dialog. And you have two options. You can just downgrade your current DGN, or you can choose folder and subfolders. So you can downgrade a whole set of files within a folder you select. So first I'll just do the current file. So you just pick what target you want to downgrade to. So, maybe I want to go back to 2020 release 2. So I'll hit OK. And then it will say, okay, where do you want to put this file that we're downgrading, right? So I will just choose the location. I believe I choose the scratch folder, or the 999 scratch folder. So I'm just making a new folder here, calling it downgrade. And then I will go into here, hit open, and then I will get a little processing form here, and it'll go through and kind of tell you that it downgraded the file. So there, and downgraded, and then what I'm going to do now is just show you that it actually worked. So if I close this and I go and try to open that file I just downgraded, we will see that I will get prompted to upgrade to the newest release. So that's basically telling you that that file got downgraded to update 8. So if you open it, it will upgrade it to the latest one, the one that you have installed. So another thing I want to show here is the remove civil model option. So what this will do will actually just remove the civil schema completely from the file. So I'm going to select a folder this time. So I'll go to engineering, I'll just pick a sheets folder, but it's going to work on any file. It basically just strips the civil model completely from the file, so that you can open it with any MicroStation product, really. So I'm going to throw that into a different folder there. I'll let it go through. There's 2 files there. All right, so it's done. So now I do want to show you when you remove the civil model, one of the things that it does do specifically for your profiles. So if I go and open that plan and profile sheet, take a look at the drawing model for my profile, you'll see that it has flattened it to just graphics. That's because that ability to see that profile, you need a civil schema, right? You need the ORD to see that. So you notice it's a cell. So I'm just going to come here and drop that cell, and then I'll drop this line again here, and you'll see that I can select it, and all the vertexes will show up there. So that's one of the things that it does do. It only does that for profiles. Cross sections, it's still a reference since it's just a slice of your 3D model. So didn't really need the civil side. So another thing you can do is you can actually open Civil File Manager and perform pretty much the same thing. This used to be called Version Checker. So with this release, they changed the name of it to Civil File Manager. And so in here, I can open up, file folder, subfolders, so pretty similar to the other way. So let me just select a file here. I did notice that right now in this tech preview, this is not integrated with ProjectWise. If you notice, it did not give me the ability to select a ProjectWise location there. I'm assuming that will be an update that will come out. So I'm just going to pick a folder here. And now what I want to show is that under the actions, you will see the downgrade civil model option. So in there, you can choose your what you want to downgrade to, but you'll notice that there is no remove civil model option. So in order to remove the civil model, you have to be within ORD to perform that action. It's got to be inside the application for it to do those flattening things. So that's really the only difference here, but that's just another way to downgrade your files. So I think this is going to provide some relief to this problem. It is a technical preview. I've tested it out on a lot of different files, and it seems to work up until I run into a drainage and utilities file. Then it seems to not work. So again, it is a tech preview. So I submit that as a ticket to Bentley, and hopefully they'll get that addressed. But if you guys didn't,
have a couple questions coming in.
All right, yeah, this video is just about done. I was just showing that when I open the file, it is showing you that it's downgraded because it's asking you to upgrade it. Okay, so let's see here. Where are we at?
Does OpenRoads version 10.09.00.91 really have noticeable enhancements in regards to the drainage and utilities workflow and plan production labeling?
So it does, but then it's still broken. So I have a couple videos out there, and I think our November webinar, I talked about drainage utilities and annotation. It's really all around annotation, annotating across a reference. So with the update, it does allow you to annotate across a reference, which previous ones didn't. But the problem is every time you close and reopen the file, it doesn't auto load the properties. So then when the text fields are set to auto update, which by default they are, they update, they can't find the properties, and they update to nothing. So then once you get into the file, you can load those properties, and then the text fields will update to be correct again. So that is still a problem that I've worked with Bentley on here, and I gotta believe the next update they're gonna fix that problem. So we'll see. It seems to work somewhat, but not every time. So, but other than that, there are a lot of other updates in 10.9 as well. Internally, we are still on 10.8. We were trying to see when the next release will be out, if we will skip 10.9 or not. But we've always had the stance that we don't want to dictate what version you guys externals are using, because we already know it's hard enough, especially if we're working with other DOTs, and if all these different DOTs start dictating different versions that you have to use, it's just going to make the problem even worse. So we're trying to cause as little much of a problem as possibly can. But granted, this is a problem. it's going to be hard to work around. So we're trying to do our best. That's why we had the version control. So
yeah,
hopefully that answers the question.
That was kind of a couple of the next questions. Does ODOT recommend we update to 10.09?
So do we recommend? It's kind of what I said is we're not saying you have to. I know people have. Our standards will work. Again, going forward isn't really a problem. So if you upgrade and our standards is still an older version, it will still work. I'll leave it at that. Like, I think, another question, they can't upgrade because of the partners who won't upgrade until ODOT list their supported version. So we can look at, what our website is saying is on our website for our versions, that's just saying the versions that we are using. It doesn't necessarily say that that's what we're supporting. We're just letting you know, here's what we're running internally. Let's see here, wondering what happens if you're in OpenRails Designer, but you downgrade to a folder that has OpenBridge Modeler or OpenRail. Do they downgrade properly? Personally, I have not tried that. The downgrade civil model, I guess, when you run it from the civil file manager executable, that gets installed with all those products. So if I had to guess, I don't want to say something incorrectly because I haven't verified it, but if they all have that product and they all have that feature, then I would assume that it would be able to do that. Again, I haven't tried it, so I don't want to tell you something wrong. But if it's in the civil file manager and it's in all those products, then I can venture to guess that it would work. But I don't know if they added those to the other products yet or not. So sorry, I can't answer that 100%. Can you confirm whether or not drainage utility 3D data created in 10.09 can be downgraded to 10.08? Our firm has attempted to perform this and do not get the exact prompts for confirming that the downgrade was achieved. So with the downgrade civil model, I have noticed that when I try to downgrade a file that contains the drainage and utilities project, it seems to crash on me. So I don't think it's working, but maybe it's just something I'm doing. I submitted a ticket on it, and again, it is a tech preview, so it's kind of their way to disclose that it might not work 100% as they're still, testing it out. So, all right, I think that was all the questions.
Yeah, there was a couple more that that came in that we got a couple people ask about our support tickets and whether or not we could post all of our like if a support ticket comes in and we answer it with like a resolving a problem, if there's a place where we have all of that information published. We don't necessarily have that. We have the data available. We don't really have it published anywhere.
I think if it's a bigger problem, like I don't think we're going to post every single question we get in. I mean, some people might not want other people to see the questions they ask, but if it's a big enough problem, we can always post that on our wiki page. There is that form on our wiki page, I guess our community page technically, that you can post things there, and then everyone can see that there. But yeah, I don't think we're necessarily going to just say here's all of our tickets and let everyone see it.
Right.
I don't think that's a good idea, dude. Hopefully everyone agrees with me.
Hopefully more of a targeted thing, like if it's a recurring problem that maybe we have a solution for, maybe publish something like that.
Yep. Yeah. We can. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, if something comes up, like one of the topics we're talking about today came up a lot. Any news on next ORD release? So Bentley is lock and key on that now that they're a public company. They will not dissolve that. So no, I do not know when that next release would be. I would assume that should be sometime soon, but no, I can't even get a date out of them. So sorry, I can't help you on that one. Okay, so let's see here. So someone asked about a list of defects. We do have a bunch of defects. I guess we can talk about, letting the bigger ones be known. Some of them are enhancements, some of them are defects, some of them they're working on. So I mean, we are working with Bentley, and they're working on a lot of stuff. So yeah, we can take a look at our list that we have and see what we can put out there. But okay, so a lot of good questions. I like this. I feel like if we were live in person, then most of you guys might not have asked those questions, right? So there are some benefits to doing this virtual, right? All right, so moving on, hopefully the downgrade civil model, I think that is a pretty cool feature. Hopefully that might solve some issues that you guys might be running into when you're working with subs. But honestly, when you start a project, you really need to get everyone on the same page, the same version, so you don't run into those kind of problems. But all right, so the next topic, which has been just a very frustrating problem for me, and maybe you guys have ran into it, is the refresh item master problem. So I believe this started back in May. So if anyone knows what I'm talking about, then they probably have seen this dialogue, this frustrating dialogue. So this problem, I honestly, I don't know what happened. I mean, the refresh item master has been there since like 2015. That button has worked since 2015, and all of a sudden it's starting to ask externals for credentials when you can go to the same location that it's pointed to on the SharePoint file, and you guys can download it no problem. So I don't know what happened. Either some Windows update, some Office update, maybe there's some update on our end on the SharePoint side, but our IT has sworn to me that they did not change anything in permissions. So I couldn't come down to the bottom of what actually caused it, because it actually is working. If you're inside ODOT, we don't get this message. Okay, so this affects the GenSub file and our item master Excel add-in. Okay, so what I've done in the meantime is I've shown people how to update their GenSum item master manually. I think we have a solution which we'll get to next, but I do want to, if you already have that file started, you might not want to switch everything over to a new file. So I do want to show everyone this manual update process so you guys know. But basically what I've done is I'm going to update the files internally, and I'm putting them on our SharePoint or on our FTP site, and there are the links there. And then the workflow is basically you download those and then use those as a way to get the updated item master. So for the add-in, that's just replacing the add-in file. That's easy to do. The GenSum, you can't just replace the file because you probably have data in there, right? All right, so what I'm going to show is I got a video here. These are the steps. Nobody really wants to read through all these steps. Basically, you download the file, and then you're copying from one to the other. So it's not too bad. So I got a video here. I'm going to show you guys the workflow. So in here, I'm just at our FTP site inside the pub CADD temp folder. See in the browser at the top. And in here, you'll see that there's a GenSum file and an item master add-in file. So for the GenSum, what you're going to do when you want to update is you're going to come here and you're going to download that GenSum file here. Again, I'm trying to update this every couple days. Occasionally I forget. So if you notice it's not updated, then just shoot me an email and I'll get one out there. Okay, so I'm going to download this file. Apparently I was talking more in the videos. Just so you guys know, when we post the PowerPoints, all my videos do have sound. I just turn them off for when I'm talking over them. So if you guys don't want to like hunt through the 2.5 hour video, you could open the PowerPoint and go to that slide as well. Just kind of side note. So I got this file open, and so this is the one I just downloaded from the FTP site. I'm also going to want to open up the GenSum file that I want to update, right? So I got two of them open side by side here. What I want to do is on the one I want to update, that refresh item master button is probably not working for externals. So I'm going to come down to my tabs at the bottom. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say unhide. And I want to unhide the query item 2 sheet. Okay, so that's actually the copy of the item master that gets updated, if you guys are wondering. I'm going to unprotect it. So go up to the top, review, unprotect the sheet. There's no password, it's just protected. Okay, so that's what we want to update. So now we're going to go over to our GenSum file that's updated from the FTP site. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come over, right click, unhide, unhide the query item 2. So in here, all I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the lines. So I'll just select A2, hold down the shift key, hit over to get to the G column, and then hold down shift and control key and hit down, and that will select all of the rows. I will then copy it, and I'll come over to the file I want to update, click in cell A2, and I will paste. Okay. So after you paste it, you should then have the update. If I go down to the bottom, so just hit control down, takes me to the last row, control down on the other side there. I'm both of them at the same time. Most likely got all the updates then, right? I'll protect that sheet again. If you don't, it's not a big deal. I'll hide that sheet so we don't see it. And now your GenSum file will be updated. Okay, so we'll hit save. And so that is the manual process. I know that's not ideal. I get that, but I think we have a fix moving forward. But these current files, if you don't feel like moving to the new GenSum file, then this is how you can update your item master. Okay. I do think I go back to the FTP site. And so when I want to quickly show the add-in side. So I'm going to download the add-in file. Let me jump forward here. I'm talking too much. So the add-in file, if you have the ODAT tab at the top, that's the add-in. So you're most likely at the same problem. It won't let you refresh the add-in. So this is just a file that you're actually just configured to inside of Excel stuff. So all we have to do is just replace this file. So if you're wondering where that file is, if you go to the backstage and hit options and then add-in section or tab, at the bottom or right in there you see the active application add-ins. There's the item master add-in, and it's going to tell you the location of that file, right? So this one is on my X drive here. So wherever that is, that's where you need to replace the add-in so that it gets updated. So most of the time it should be inside your standards. So if you guys are on the network, then you probably all are configured to the same add-in, but you just literally come here and download that file and replace it. So that is the manual method for updating the item master in the add-in as well as the general summary sheet. So this video will probably be useful if you guys run into that. I know many of you already have ran into it. Again, I can't figure out what happened. So solution, this is going to be active virtual meeting, right, or event. So I am going to post this link in here to this form, and I want everyone to fill out the form, and I'm going to walk you guys through it, and we can just see if our solution is fixed. So where did that link go? I'm all flustered because I was working on that fixed link. Here, let's see here, share. All right, I'm going to post this Okay, so I just posted a link to this form. And so what we're going to do is we're going to fill out the form and just test to see if we fix this refresh problem. All right, so hopefully everyone has seen this link, and you guys can all click on it and open it. And I'm going to do the same. So here, let me pull it up on my end. Okay. So in here, what we're going to do is we're going to just fill out our name. So I know organization, ODOT, email address, so I can contact you guys if you're still having a problem. Okay, so all we're going to do here is in question 4, we're going to download the old GenSum here, and we're going to see if you guys currently have the problem first. Okay, so all you got to do is click on this link. It will download this GenSum file. Whenever it finishes scanning for viruses, and we're going to open that file. So it does take a second to open, but please, guys, I really, you guys would help us out a lot if you could fill out this form with me here, so we really know if we fix the problem or not. So I think it's another benefit of doing virtual. Everyone can just click on the link and get straight to the form here. So mine is loading up here, and the steps are right here. You pretty much open this file, go to the general summary tab, click the green refresh item master button. You'll get a prompt, are you sure? Hit yes. If you get the successfully updated, then it's working. So then fill out yes. If it doesn't work, or you get this kind of login dialog, hit no. So here it's open. I'll enable content. Again, I'm just going to go to the just general summary tab, hit refresh item master. Are you sure you want to refresh? Yes. And then it will go through and refresh. And so some of you guys, it might take 20 seconds to update. Some might take a minute to update. If we're all hitting it at the same time, because it might take a little longer, but there it said it took 14 seconds. So that means it worked for me, which I expected it to. I expect it to work for ODOT people. So ODOT, if you guys are listening, you guys can fill this out if you want, but I'm mainly after the externals here. All right, so that was the problem GenSum file that we currently been using. So if we go to question 5, there's another download that says GenSum solution. So we'll click on this link to download this one. So this is the one I think we have it fixed in. So let it download, and it's going to be the same steps here in this solution file. We're going to go to the GenSum file. We're going to hit that green refresh item master button. Hit yes. Yeah, we really want to update it. And hopefully a majority of you guys are getting good, or getting this completed. And so then if it is working for you, hit yes. If it's not, hit no, and then hit submit. So here, I think that's done downloading. So open this up. All right, so it's opened up for me. I'll bring it over here. I'm in the solution file now. I come to my general summary tab, hit this green refresh item master, and then hit yes. And let this one update. And I got successfully updated. So I hit OK. So I knew that was going to work for me. So externals, hopefully you guys are doing this right now. So I'm going to submit this. And it says, thanks, submitted. So let me pull up the results here and see what we're looking at. I'll give you guys some time to actually fill it out here. All right, we're up to 43 responses. Well, that's a lot more yeses. I expected to see more no's here. Oh, we got one no. All right. So maybe this is a bunch of ODAT people. I see ODAT. Still least response. There's 3 no's. I really expected to see this higher. So I have been told if by chance you do get, where'd it go? This thing, sometimes if you hit cancel, it'll then still work. Sometimes it'll just come up again. I have been told that. So see, we have 244 people on this and only 64 responses. So let's try to bump this up here. Deliberately leaving time in this meeting because this definitely is a problem that we need to get fixed. So there's some didn't try. I was hoping people didn't fill that out, but it's really no point in filling it out. So let's try to get this up to at least 80. Check the questions here while we're doing this. That solution will not download for me. Okay, so is anyone else having problems downloading these files? You can use the chat. I know I'm on like a 20 second delay here, so I'll leave some more time for you guys to answer that one. These should work. If it doesn't, try copying and pasting this link into another browser. So like if you're in Chrome, Edge and Explorer, try it in another browser. It seems like IE will let more things go through than the other ones. Someone said in Google Chrome you have to open in a new tab, which that sucks. Google Chrome is, I feel like, getting more and more restrictive. So, all right, we're almost there. We're almost to 80. Hopefully, I want to get more than that, but that's my goal to move on here. So. I had to right click on the link and open it in a new tab for Chrome. So it seems like it might be Chrome, gives you a little bit of issues downloading it. So try just copying it into another tab. Neither link worked for me either. So, let's see. Oh, 81. Good job, guys. So, well, I thought this form would give me a little more feedback, but if there's only 7 no's and 4 no's, then maybe this problem wasn't as widespread. I mean, I got tons of emails from multiple different companies about this problem. So I really expected to see more no's here, but it looks like at least it's working for for some people. So, all right. So if you guys could just, if you haven't filled it out, keep doing it. The more numbers here, the better it's going to help us out to know if we've actually fixed the problem or not. So I will move on, but I please ask that if you guys haven't, that you do go ahead and fill that out. Maybe the didn't tries or the people that couldn't download it or something.
JD, there was a response that came in, said that they get a pop-up that says request for credentials on a lot of different spreadsheets specific to ODOT, and they said once they cancel, sometimes multiple times, it finally refreshes and completes.
Huh. So I wonder, nearly every spreadsheet, are you talking about like from other offices or just, particularly with ours?
Yeah, I think it just, in general, spreadsheets that's downloaded from like our SharePoint from, probably our office and then other offices as well that have some type of refresh mechanism.
Yeah, so I feel like it's probably something that's maybe linked to something in the SharePoint page. That's what the problem is for us, because we link to the item master on the SharePoint, which part of the fix was to no longer link to that SharePoint location. All right, well, keep filling those out, guys. We're going to move on. You can always come back and fill it out after the meeting's over too. All right, so one more thing with the item master. I feel like maybe a lot of people are still a little bit confused about how all the linking is working between the GenSum, the item master, and the sub-summary sheets. And so I put together a quick video that I think will actually help clear up a lot of this for you guys. So here, let me play this video. And I didn't turn the audio off, but I didn't share my audio, so it's in my ear, not in your ear. Hold on, let me turn that off, or it's gonna be very hard for me to talk over the. Okay, try it again. All right, so I'm in this GenSum file, and I really wanted to clear up how the linking is working. So in the GenSum file, as you just saw, there's a copy of the item master inside this file. So it doesn't link like outside, doesn't get the item master from SharePoint or from the add-in. It's directly in here, and that's why there's a refresh button in here. You're refreshing that copy of the item master. And technically, there's two copies because I support two different spec years. So you see that spec year drop down. It says 2019 right now. When you choose the different spec year, that switches the links and are all switched to use that item master for that specific spec year. Okay, so I think that's pretty clear to everyone. It's all contained within this file, right? Can I talk too fast on my videos? So if we move on to talk about the item master add-in itself, so yeah, there, let me get the video caught up here. So there's the drop down for the different spec years. So that means that technically there's two copies of the item master in this file, one for each spec year. Let me jump forward a little bit. Okay, here we go. So the add-in itself, the thing you got to remember about the add-in is it gets loaded no matter what file is open. So it is a standalone thing. You see it when you open any file, but look, I have a blank file open. I still have that tab. So you got to keep that as a reminder that is completely separate from all the other files you have open, right? And so this add-in also, or this add-in also has a copy of the item master in it as well. And the refresh add-in button inside the ribbon is actually updating the copy of the add-in inside, or the copy of the item master inside this add-in. So, which spec year you're using, that's in the preferences. So if I open up the preferences, you have the option to set it to 2016, 2019. So keep in mind, this has nothing to do with what file you're in, right? This always gets loaded. It's an add-in. So when you hit that search item master, it's going to show you the item master for what spec year you've set to use in this add-in, right? So again, there's 2 different locations. So we have a copy of the add-in or the item master in the add-in. We have a copy of the item master in the general summary sheet, right? So now let's take a look at the sub summary sheets that have all the formulas that pull those item master, data like descriptions and stuff. You'll notice there is nowhere in this file a button to refresh the item master. That's because the sub summary sheets do not have a copy of the item master inside of it like the general summary sheet does. Why did I do that? A project can have a lot of sub-summary files, right? It would be a pain to have to go into every single sub-summary file and hit refresh and try to keep them all the same. So I was like, that's a recipe for disaster. So what I decided to do instead was to just have all of the sub-summary sheets linked to the add-in. So with that, there could be some broken links, right? When I release it, the links are set, but every office could put their item master add-in, to a different location. The links just can't magically know where it's at, right? That is why I've added a fix links button to the ribbon of the add-in. So what the fix links button does is it gives you the ability to say, hey, I want to update these sub-summary files to link to this spec year, right? So I'm about to open it up here. And so when I open it up, you'll notice that it has what do you want to link to, the active spec year, which is set in your add-in and on preferences. So you can link to the 2019 or 2016 spec year, and you simply add in any of the files that you want to fix the links, or just make sure the links are correct. You can just add in all of the files for a given project. I want to make sure these are all linked to 2019 and the links are good. And that's as easy as it is. It knows where the file is because you're running it from within in the add-in file or from within the ribbon. So that is so it's actually linked to the add-in. So you could also link a given spreadsheet to a specific spec year of that add-in. So if you have problems like with your items not showing up correctly, or maybe says item doesn't exist, make sure the links are right. All you got to do is go up there and hit fix links and run it. It's very simple. But that still has another problem. That link to the add-in, right? That add-in is getting updated over time. So if you go back to a sub-summary sheet that you maybe did 6 years ago, all those links or all the formulas that are linking to that add-in, the data might have changed over the years. So if you want to go back to an older file, you don't want those formulas and stuff to edit. You want it to say the way you did when you submitted it, right? So linking to the add-in, you're always going to have that problem, right? So many people don't know this, but I think this is a lot better way to go is instead of linking to your add-in, I give you the ability to link to a specific location. And that has been there since 2015. I just don't think people really use it. I did show it, but I didn't really showcase it, I guess. So what you can do here is you can literally just hit the little 3 dots here and you can go select a file, an Excel file that has the item master in it. So a great file you could go to would be your general summary file for that project, right? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to hit the 3 little bars. I'm going to select my gen sum file. And I got an error message. That's because my gen sum file is open. You have to close it. So rather than remaking the video, I thought it'd be good to show that for that button to work. So let me do that again. I'll come in here and I will hit select location. I'll choose my location. I'll choose that gen sum file. It's going to read it. It's going to say, okay, here are the spreadsheets or the sheets I've found inside this file that you can link to. So I should be pulling that over. So there's query item and query item 2. So query item is the previous spec year. Query item 2 is the current one. So when you go to the gen sum file that I showed earlier, that drop down for what spec year you want to use, the newer one is query item 2. I did that just to make updating when we go to the next spec year easier on my end. So all you got to do is hit that, hit OK, and then you can add in your files that you want to fix your links, so most likely all the sub-summary sheets on your given project, and then hit fix links, and now all those sub-summary sheets will be linked to your general summary sheet. So whenever you update your general summary sheets, these would be using that, and that is a way you can keep the formulas from updating to the latest item master, but stick with your actual copy in your general summary sheet. So that way you can come back to the files in 6 years and you don't have to worry about the formulas showing different data as our item master is updated over time. So I hope that was clear. I'll post this video. It'll have the audio on there as well if you guys want to kind of take another look at it again. But hopefully that will help you guys a lot. So I did show in here, if you're wondering how to see the links, if you go under formulas and name manager, there's two name managers or names in there. It'll list the path that they're linked to. That's kind of how you can tell what it's being linked to. So when you see query item 2, that tells you you're linked to the later one, and then that file path lets you know which one it's pulling from. So you don't have to really care about that too much. If you just use the fix links button, that'll solve most of people's problems, I think. All right, so it looks like I am like 2 minutes over on this topic, but I did think while we're talking about the item master, I thought it would be a good time to also hopefully clarify that. Anyone who's used this stuff, used the automation side of the general summary sheet, they really say how much time it saves. So if you guys aren't using it, there's tons of videos out there on it, and I think we might do a webinar on it in the future, to get people who maybe haven't seen it or know how to use it started with it. Okay, so let's see. Looks like there's no questions, which that means I did an excellent job of explaining things, right? Hopefully. So now the next topic here is placing head walls. So I don't think I'm going to take the full half hour on this, but I would say this has been an area where we're a little lacking in our standards. So we don't really have many feature definitions out there for head walls, mainly because every individual size requires a different feature definition at this time, right? And so, I mean, if you take a look at head walls, there are just thousands of possibilities of different sizes, right? So for us to go through and make those would be very time consuming and probably not worth it. What we have been waiting on is for the feature definitions to be able to handle parametric cells. So we're still waiting on that, but I think I'm done, I guess, waiting. We have to provide something. Previously we were saying submit an email or submit a service request with what sizes you need, and we'll make the sizes, kind of as the need comes in. And that still isn't really great, because you have to wait on us. So in the meantime, what I did is I went ahead and I made the 3D parametric cells. And so we can actually use those and place those. The downfall is that, it is just a cell on its own. It's not really linked to the feature definition just yet, but whenever we get that functionality added to the product, we will, already kind of be ready to go, and we'll make this process easier. So for now, I'm going to show you guys this workaround, or I guess how to place these cells and how to edit them. So there is a new cell library. It's O.3D Headwalls that I actually pushed out yesterday. So Mark, mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that we did push out. So there's a lot of other things that got pushed out. So do check out the update doc. Okay. So how is the workflow going to work? We still are going to need to place a feature definition so that we can place our conduit or our pipe, right, our culvert. So we still need to place that. So we had a generic headwall feature in there. What I did was I actually updated that. Instead of placing a triangle, I was going to place an X. That just makes it easier to snap to. I realize the triangle, it's kind of hard to snap to the center. So I've updated that. That got pushed out yesterday. And then we'll place this head wall in the 3D model, and we can just use the node that we place to snap to it to make placement a little bit easier. So rather than read through this page, it's a lot easier if I just play video, right? So let me play this. All right, so I just have our notorious Stay-Route 185 data set that we use for everything because it's so familiar to everyone, right? All right, so I'm in this file and I'm over by the culvert area. And what I want to do first is I want to place those generic headwall nodes just so I get my pipe in and kind of help me find my location I want to place this 3D headwall, right? So I'm going to go over into the drawing and utilities workflow at the top. Again, I talk too much in my videos, apparently. I'm probably saying something really important. So let's jump forward a little bit. All right, here we go. So we're going to layout tab and we're going to place nodes. So again, this placing head walls isn't so much about placing nodes. I mean, I've shown that multiple times. Hopefully everyone knows how to do that, but just show you the workflow here. I'm already on the generic head wall feature definition. So that's the one you're going to want to use. There's one for pros and existing. It puts it on a generic head wall level that you can turn off because you're most likely not going to want to see these graphics in the long run. So I'm going to come down. I'm actually going to use the survey point, but you don't have to. So I'm keying in elevation. The rotation doesn't matter. You see there's a little X. Now, again, you're going to place this wherever you want to place it, but there's the 3DX. So it looks like a jack from like game jacks. Helps you a lot easier. It makes it a lot easier to snap to that center than the triangle that was there before. Again, they're on just I think a generic head wall level, so you can turn it off to get out of your way. So I'm going to place the other side, so I'm keying in the elevation. So again, this is going to be the location that you want that head wall invert at, right? So again, you might not have, if it's proposed, you might not put it right where they surveyed that point, but I'm using it just for demonstration. Okay, so again, now you can put it in a pipe. So I'm putting in a pipe. Again, it's not really what the video is about, but figured out, you need to put the nodes in to draw the pipe, right? So granted, that's a small culvert pipe. It's probably not even the right type, but it's just for demonstration. So now, what we really want to show here is you got to go to the 3D model because this is a 3D cell that we're placing. So you do have to place it in 3D, which is where a little bit of the complication comes in because you got to know a little bit how to draw in 3D. It's not bad. So I am starting to place active cell. So if I go and I choose the OHDOT 3D headwall cell library, in here I'm going to see all those parametric cells that I made. So I made them for headwall 1.1, type A, type B with a left angle, type B with a right angle, the half height 2.1, 2.2, and then the box culverts type A, B, and C are in there as well. So again, that's just a starting point. Again, they're parametric cells, so you can change the variables to any custom size that you want. That's the reason why I'm showing you this, because it's a kind of a workaround. So I'm going to place the headwall 1.1 type A, and you'll notice there are variables and also variations. So on the second line, that drop down actually has variations. So that will match the standard construction drawing. So when you select on a given variation, it's going to set all the variables down low to those values that you'll find in our standard construction drawings. You can very well just come in here and type in your own dimensions that you want here. Okay, so H, A, B, if you're wondering what those represents, take a look at the standard construction drawing, and that'll give you A and B are the footings, C is the distance to the center of the headwall parts, like half the distance of the main length. H is obviously the height, H2 is the height of the wing wall. I won't go over all of them. TS is thickness, I guess I just did. So, all right, so we're gonna place it. So right now, when you see that, which I talk too much now, when I see that, it wasn't looking right? So that's because I need to turn on AccuDraw, and I need to make sure that I set my AccuDraw orientation. So I hit T for top in AccuDraw to set my 3D AccuDraw compass to be in the top plane. And then that rotates it so that it's in the top view, which is what you want. And now you're just going to click and make sure you check on interactive in the dialog so you can choose your rotation. If you don't check on interactive, it won't let you rotate it. And the way I drew all of these is so that you could go to the other side and snap to get the rotation. So I drew it purposely So you don't have to worry about like keying in an angle. If you have, a culvert alignment line or something, or just the two ends, you can easily just go click on the other side, and that'll do the rotation to match that skew of the pipe, whatever it might be. Okay. So let's take a look at another one. So if I go to like the box culvert head wall here, you see there's more variables. That's just the way the standard construction drawing. Well, I guess there's technically their data sheet. It's not really a standard construction drawing, but if you guys do this, you know what I'm talking about. So I put in a lot of variations. I was not about to put in a variation for every box span and thickness, so that's why I put the little hashtags. Just remember to fill that out. The rest really was just the heights and the skews. So since this is a left angle type B, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come over. I'm just going to place it. Again, make sure your civil AccuDraw is on and you're in the top rotation there so you get it placed correctly. And the rotation, same way, come across to the other side, click, you get your rotation. All right. So looking at top view, it looks like the rotation came in right. That's what I like to see. And take a look at another one. So the half height are a lot simpler. They're just basically a block. But we did put in all the variations. So I had Tess do that. So thank you, Tess. We put in all those different variations. I know there was a lot of them. I won't place that one. So let's talk a little bit more about these parametric cells here. So if I click on this parametric cell and I take a look at the properties, what you're going to see is there's a whole section for variables, right? So they're all listed. So you can easily come in after you place it and change the dimensions here, and your cell will automatically update. So let's take a look at this. One thing I want to mention is that I did take a lot of time to get the resizing to work appropriately. I think I might be getting ahead of myself. So one thing, I want to make sure I don't skip. I do want to mention one thing though that I've seen, which is what I'm talking about right now here. So your audio will I guess better match up with the video, but I have noticed that sometimes when that initial placement of the cell, it places it to the left or to the right a little bit. So do give that a check. You notice it doesn't do it to me every time. I think it does it to me whenever I compress the file and I try to get rid of unused headers is what I think I've narrowed it down to. So you guys hopefully won't see this, but if you do, it's not hard to fix. Just come here and do like a midpoint snap on your head wall. And if the midpoint snap lines up with where your node is, then it places it correctly. If it's not, then it will be like over here to the side a little bit. All you have to do is select your cell and do a move command and just move it in place, and then everything works fine. I'm just making that aware to you guys because it has happened to me, but it seems like it's probably after you do your compress or something, because as you notice right here, it worked just fine for me. So I don't want to make people think it's so complicated or it doesn't work. I'm just trying to be, I guess, full disclosure of everything I ran into. But anyways, let's change the size here. So that's just a little side note. Just check that it actually placed it, and you'll pretty quickly know that it's a little off. But again, just move it. It's not the end of the world here. So what you'll notice is that when you change the value, like I just changed this from I think 2 to 4, I have set these parametric cells up to make sure that it resizes correctly. So the origin, the midpoint stays the same here, and it moved out the two ends. Same thing with the height. If I change the height, it's going to move it up. If I change anything with the footings, it's going to move it down. That invert location is going to stay put. So that's how I made sure I rigorously tested that. So if you guys aren't getting that, let me know. But I took a long time, a lot of remakes to get it to parametric cell to kind of resize the way we want it to. So I really like the way these turned out. So this is going to be a lot easier than making like 1,000 feature definitions. It's a little bit of workaround because you got to place it in 3D. So hopefully that will go away. Whenever the feature definitions support it, because then it would all be in the same step. But until we get there, this is a workaround, right? So another thing, I did not put a punch a hole through the head wall to represent the culvert coming through, and I did that on purpose because then you can use it for multiple shapes. So if it's like circular, elliptical, box culvert, I just opted not to punch it out. So if you still want to see where the pipe would be coming through or that opening, you can come in here and just draw it in 3D. So what I'm about to do is I'm about to place a block, and I'm just going to place it and draw it on the face of this culvert. So again, I'm going to have to use Civil AccuDraw. So I'll just make it red, or I think I was going to make it red. Yeah. So I'm making it red just so you guys can see it, but obviously it might be black with a different display. It might look better. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to place a block. I'm going to use AccuDraw. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to hit F11 to give AccuDraw focus. I'm going to hit the O key, and then the C key, or the A key to set the origin. And now I'm talking too slow. So what I did is, I did a midpoint snap, and I set my origin to that midpoint, and that was just using the O key and then the A key for AccuDraw. And then what I did was I was set my AccuDraw compass to be in the plane of the face of this head wall. And the way you do that is just R and the E for rotate to element, right? So RE, AccuDraw shortcut, rotates to element, and then I'm going to kind of move my cursor over into this face, and you'll notice that the compass here rotated to be there. And so I'll click, and that sets my rotation. So now I will key in, whatever, like maybe it's a 4 foot, so I'll key in 2 to move my starting point over 2 feet, right? So now I got that starting point. So now I'll come over 4 feet, and then that's kind of like your opening. So you start at the midpoint, go half the distance. So there's just some Civil AccuDraw shortcuts. So you don't need to do scratch lines if you know how to use AccuDraw. So I'll key in a height here, and there I'll enter that in. So really that's just for more viewing purposes. Just if you want to see that opening, what it would look like. You could do the same thing for a circle or elliptical. I drew a box because I thought that would show AccuDraw better since you guys started not at the midpoint. But you could do that with all the different shapes, really. So there I changed my view to kind of see more of a material-based view. I think I did smooth modeling to see that. So, one thing I do want to caution you is that this cell, the downfall of this whole workflow is the cell has nothing to do with the feature definition, nothing to do. It doesn't have hydraulic properties on it or anything like that. So if you end up changing the invert of your node, so you go back to your node feature definition, you change the invert, you have to remember to come back here and change and move that cell because it doesn't know to move with it. It's not a part of it. So that's the downfall to this workflow. But the benefit is that you can easily change the size all you want with the variables. So eventually when feature definitions support parametric cells, then we won't have to worry about that. But for right now, that's what we have to worry about. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention this is when you place these cells, don't forget to set your active level. You notice that when I placed it, it came in on the head wall color there. But if you look at my active symbology, the level was default, and I still had bilevels. So the weird thing is that these parametric cells, all the sub elements, all the pieces of this cell, they get placed on the head wall level and the symbology. So that's why the color is showing up. But then the overall cell places on your active symbology. So I feel like it probably should either act like a point cell or a graphic cell. So I'm going to send a ticket to Bentley on that to get some clarification on, why is it treating it like a graphic, but then still using your active symbology for the level. So just a side note there, just set your level to, the head wall level, so you can control the display of that if you wish. But I think other than that, that is all I had for.
We did have a question come in, JD.
All right. For head walls, sometimes the cutoff wall is needed. When this happens, the head wall needs bumped out by 6 inches. Is this an option with the cell? I guess when you say bumped out, you're meaning like you could just move the location of the cell, like the whole thing, if that's what you mean. That origin point is what stays put. So if you bump it out, 6 inches, then everything moves with it. If I didn't answer your question, shoot me an email, and I can make sure I understood that correctly. Will the parametric head walls show in the profiles and cross sections? So in terms of cross sections, it's a 3D slice. So if your cross section is slicing through that, then it's going to show whatever it crosses. So it'll show the actual, shapes that it crosses. In terms of profile, you can do a 3D cut to show it. It won't by default show on the profile. If you do like a profile run, that's not gonna work either. Let me make sure I answer that right. I feel like I showed this in a webinar, doing the profile with the. I think what if I remember right, in my webinar I showed doing a 3D cut to get the head wall to show up, and then that one I was using an actual node, and it had the cutout of where the pipe comes through, so the opening, which we normally on the profile or for a culvert detail sheet, because that's really what the video was showing was how to make a culvert detail sheet, and you're using the profile to do that. You could just draw on the profile the extra stuff you needed, like riprap, or if you didn't like that it wasn't showing where the opening was, you could just draw those lines in. Now don't do that on a cross section, because when you draw on a cross section, you're drawing it on like all the cross sections. So when you do that plan profile sheet, or sorry, when you do that culvert detail sheet and you're setting up like the profile view for that culvert detail sheet, you want to use profile. So you want to draw like an alignment line for your culvert to do that. So yeah, so it would be a 3D cut. Let's see here. Could we drop the cell, then modify the shape? I haven't tried dropping it, to be honest with you, but I would assume you could drop it because it is a cell. But keep in mind, those variables are how you're going to change the shape of it. If you need something a different shape, let me know, because these parametric cells, you got to be careful on how you create them, so the variables move it in the correct way. So if one, I feel like I covered all the shapes our head walls would need. So ideally, you change the variables, change the shape. But if you have something that is different, let me know. Put a service request in, and we can make another parametric cell for that. I believe once you copy it in, you can probably go into your parametric cells settings and start changing things around. So if you know how to make parametric cells, I think you can still get to that. I have some hidden variables that you won't be able to see unless you go back to cell library, but I don't want to lead you down that road. I think it'd be easier to just reach out to us, and we can get a shape that out there for everyone. Can the top of head wall be used as a target for corridor modeling? So it's a shape. What I would probably do is draw in a line along the back, and then use that as your target aliasing. Would probably be better, which I did show that in the webinar on, I forget which one, but I did show it, and there's a video. I also showed it back February 2019 user group meeting. In there, I also have a video of how to make a culvert detail sheet, and I did show how to put that grading, like target, like put a line in here, target alias it, and get your grading to come to it on the back end. So if you can't find that, shoot me an email, and I can get you that.
I posted the link to the drainage webinar, JD.
Yeah, I can't remember. The drainage webinar. I don't think I showed the culvert detail sheet. If I remember right, I think that one was shown in the February user group meeting. I think it was like what, February 19. I can't remember the exact date, but the one in February from 2019 is where I think that's the only place I showed it. Is there detail on Headwall 2.1 and 2.2 showing the cutoff? So I went back and forth on if I should show the cutoff or not, because then when you get later on and you get to like your 3D cuts or showing it, you won't, if you cut your like profile and it's only right there, you won't see it because it's not there. You won't really know where the top is. So I felt like it was in the long run through the whole process, it'd be better not to do that, so that when you get to like cutting like your sheets and setting up your profile or something, that you actually see it. Because if it's a 3D cut, it's only going to show what it crosses, and if it's nothing to cross, then you won't see it. So I opted not to do that. Again, reach out to me if you don't like that. You guys can help gear the way this goes. I'm just trying to provide the resources the best I can. So if I didn't quite meet your guys' needs or situations for different things, please reach out to us so we can make it work, or change things or add more things to the standards to hopefully make your lives easier. That's the goal.
Yeah, we had a recording on February 27th of the users group.
Yeah, so it might be better to go through the PowerPoint on that one, to just go directly to the page on culvert details and watch the video from there, rather than to navigate through, the 5-hour video. So I think I'm way over time now with all these questions, right? I think.
No, I don't think so. I think just a couple more minutes.
Look at that. Our agenda is top notch. All right. I think we answered all the questions. Again, feel free to reach out if something like this doesn't meet your needs, but it is out there. These parametric cells were released yesterday. So with that, I believe I will turn it over to Matt now.
All right, thanks. Let me make sure I can share my screen. Okay, let me know if you can't see any of that. Someone can speak up. So thanks, JD. I'm Matt Iben with Office CADD and Mapping. It's hard to believe I've been here in this group now for a year. So for those of you who don't know me, I joined ODOT last March with 20 plus years in consulting world. So been doing the same things a lot of you folks who are watching have been doing. Just now I'm on this side of the fence. So this is probably the last time I'll give that little introduction. But so today we're going to talk about some new profile grade line feature definitions that I had been working on and added to the workspace. So I'm surely, nearly everyone's probably worked on a divided highway project with a split profile grade, a PGL in each direction of travel, or maybe a profile grade line is the same for most of the project, or you need to end up adjusting the beginning or the end to meet existing. You probably ended up creating a plan profile sheet like this sample plan, or maybe you had a separate plan sheet and then showed the profile, the left profile and the right profile together on a separate sheet. The latter there is probably what I'd say is more common, or at least what I'd seen the most. So next we're going to talk about some of the changes and additions to hopefully make these workflows a little bit easier. And before we jump into some of this, I just show a couple typical sections to try to make it more clear what I'm trying to portray here. So the top is really showing an ideal scenario where both the left and right PGL are the same, but as you know, they can often be different in elevation for various reasons, terrain and whatnot. The bottom is another case where you may not have a divided roadway, but you have to have your PGL offset from the center line of construction. So in this case, there was a two-way left turn lane there, and the profile grade line was offset 6 feet. I'm sure you all can think of other scenarios you've run into that you've had to do something like this. And the way we handle this with ORD seems to be a little bit different than our GeoPack approach. So as I sort of already stated, there was a couple of needs here that arose, and one was, a way to accommodate a divided highway project with split or offset profile grade lines using a common center line. And also we received several requests about how to show the existing ground line at twin structures where they wanted to see the PGL or the existing ground at the profile grade lines for each structure, and then annotate those strip grade elevations accordingly. So this is what we've come up with, and it's sort of, I guess I'll talk about it here more. It's still somewhat a bit of a work in progress as we kind of work through some issues with Bentley. So the GeoPack workflow, assuming everyone has done that before, is you would cut and offset existing ground line and then design the proposed profile along the sort of projected center line stationing. So you could do this in the same file or same model. DNC Manager didn't care where you displayed the profile cells, so you could probably, I've seen different folks do it different ways. They might have put it in the same file with their horizontal alignment, or maybe created a separate profile base map and put both the left and right in one DGN, one above the other, or maybe had separate DGNs for the left and right profiles. Everyone has a different way that they've kind of tackled that. And then, the profile cell would display the center line stationing, so that common center line, regardless of where the existing ground line was actually cut. So you had to sort of pay attention when you cut that existing ground profile. Oops, went the wrong way. So in ORD, it needs to keep the vertical geometry in the same DGN as the horizontal geometry. So this sort of creates a problem if you want or need to have two profile grade lines. We can't do it. We can't create another DGN file referencing the horizontal alignment and create a proposed profile as a reference file. So the previous DGN libraries only had one feature definition to choose from for proposed profiles. So then, the question came up, then what do you do if you want to show two? So, the first option that sort of came to my mind was create a copy of the horizontal geometry file, and have one, actually have two files, one for each profile grade line. Obviously that would create duplicate horizontal geometry, would cause numerous issues. For example, the horizontal alignment changes. You need to make that change in two places and make sure it happens, is correct both places. Potential modeling problems. I haven't really tried it, but I anticipate that if you had two of the exact same alignments referenced in with the same name, you're probably going to get some sort of modeling type issue. Well, it's not looking at the right alignment, for example. And there's probably a handful of other reasons why this is not a good idea, and we're not going to recommend a workflow like this. So in the January update, we added new feature definitions that can be used. Of course, these would require associated level, element templates, feature symbologies, annotation groups, and all those other things that need added to the workspace to make that happen. So I'm only listing the feature definitions here. The level names are on the next slide. If you want a full list, I did include everything that was added in the running update log that's delivered with the workspace. So note that all of these feature definitions are in the linear profile folder or group. So when you're looking for those with the feature definition lists or drop downs, you won't find them under the alignment folder. And if you only have one profile grade line, you can keep working with the same GEP alignment feature definition, for example, that we've currently been using. And then lastly, you'll notice on each one of these, you'll see that they all have a suffix of left or right. So. And here are the new levels. Again, each have the left or right suffix, and the levels were added to differentiate existing and proposed text annotations as well. So I'll show that here in a demo in a few minutes. There were a few other changes that I haven't listed on a slide, but that we tried to incorporate, or that I tried to incorporate, that change some some levels that were used. For example, the datum and station text that was in the drawing models, for example, was using just a proposed profile text level. So I changed that to the profile proposed station elevation text level that I think had existed for a long time. So that way we can turn things on or off a little bit differently. There was also a correction to the existing strip grade elevation level to use. We changed it to use an existing level instead of a proposed text level. So you may have noticed that your existing strip grades are coming in on, I think, the PF underscore text underscore or underscore P underscore text level. So I'll show or I'll talk more about that in a minute. So as far as plan production and being able to produce a sheet like I showed at the beginning, we've been looking for a way to create these types of sheets. So the sample plan showed a plan, profile left, and a profile right stacked up all together. We'd also like to be able to create a profile left and profile right sheet. So in that case, you would have a separate plan sheet to go along. So I think we've probably all done that. You can't quite get enough coverage on a plan sheet, maybe on a large highway project or an interchange, and you want to just show the whole plan together anyway. So that is the goal. Currently, ORD doesn't really support these types, and so we reached out to Bentley, and they provided some examples, and I'm going to explain what they provided. Darn it. And how we've kind of approached it. So in their example that they used with another DOT, they had a horizontal alignment for each profile grade line. So they had different stationing along the PGL. As you know, that's generally not how we do it. I think there are some scenarios where you might create horizontal geometry there, but we generally just use the common center line as a reference line and then project that profile accordingly. So as I mentioned earlier in GeoPack, we could cut the existing ground line at a specified offset, use DNC Manager to display that, and it would always use that center line stationing. So in the Bentley workflow that they provided, at least gave me a good starting point, and I thought with a few changes, I could have something that would work, and we did. I was able to get about 75% of the way with a plan profile sheet, or just the profile, one profile, one side of the profile grade, or the left side, for example. Then when I tried adding the second profile, the right side, in both cases, it caused ORD to crash. So we submitted this as a service request to Bentley. That's sort of where it sits now. We did ask them last week in our monthly call with them for an update and see if they could provide any more guidance. So or clarification on whether I was doing something wrong or if there is a bug in the program. So if you're curious, the actual workflow was basically, the idea was to have two container files, one for each profile grade line. So all our geometry, both left and right, would be in the same BK file. And then when we cut the sheets, we create a container file for each side. And then the level display would be controlled differently, and the name boundaries could be created for each PGL. The first profile worked exactly like expected with the name boundaries, and the second profile still uses the same name boundary workflow, but when we get to the actual drawing model creation, we have to specify the DGN file where we want that new drawing model to be created. So for example, I wanted to place the drawing model for the right profile grade line for the first sheet in the same DGN as the drawing model for the left PGL with the same station limit. So when we went to do that, there isn't an option in there, and you may have seen it. There's an option that says optimize for, so we can select the area on that sheet where that drawing model would be placed, and that's where ORD would crash in both the examples. So the other downside to this was that I probably should have just made it a video or something and included this. It probably takes too long to set up and show in a live demo, but the other downside was that when we added the second profile, it has to be done individually for each name boundary. So it was somewhat of an automated process. You could cut the name boundaries, but then when you went in to actually create the drawing model for each, you had to do it for each sheet individually. So if you had 20 sheets, you'd have to do that process 20 times to add the second profile to the sheet. I guess it's not the end of the world. You know, it still would only take, if it worked, I'm guessing it only take, you know, a few seconds for each sheet. So once you have it done, you don't really have to come back unless you're going to recut your sheets or change your station limit or something, your match lines. So all that said, for the time being, it's still going to recommend using the separate profile sheets. So you just do all your left profiles all on one set of sheets. You can use the separate profile sheets, or you can do it on your plan and profile sheets. Then you would have separate for the left and right. So if you need to do that now, that's the kind of where we're going with this, but you can still use the feature definitions that we're talking about today. If you already had files created prior to that January update and you've been using those, you will need to update the standards from the DGN library. So within the Explorer, you just navigate to the DGN file that you have open, right click on that, and you could say update from DGN library or DGN lib. This will ensure you have all the correct feature definitions and, you know, basically make them in sync with the OHDOT delivered DGN libraries. You will want to do this in the BK files that you have. So if you have more than one, you need to do that in each BK file. And you also need to do this in the existing terrain model. So that I mentioned the terrain model earlier and the strip grade elevations not coming in on the right level. Those strip grades from the terrain model are controlled, or that feature definition is in that terrain model DGN. So that is important to make sure you go in and do the same thing in your terrain model file. As a side note, you know, if you're not the CADD administrator for your company, you will need to make sure you have the most recent workspace in your environment, however you guys handle that. I'm assuming most everyone will keep up to date. I know we've talked to some folks who don't like to upgrade right away or don't like to get the current standard right away. So you will need to at least have the January update. And then lastly, there is a key in. So if you wanted to come up with a batch process of some sort, you could probably do that. I haven't tried it, but I have tried the key in. I haven't tried a batch process. So just civil DGN lib will do the same thing as right clicking on the file name in Explorer. There are still a few things I need to or would like to incorporate into the workspace, and hopefully that'll be soon. As I mentioned earlier, I'd like for us to be able to produce those plan profile sheets, or the profile left, profile right sheet together. So the profile left and right feature definitions will be annotated in a similar fashion to what we currently show, except the vertical curve annotation won't have the dimension lines that you see on when we cut our sheets, your plan and profile sheets currently. So you might have some manual editing to do for the time being, just draw in some dimension lines until we get those annotation groups created. I sort of withheld, I wanted to make sure we could create the sheets before we went into creating the annotation groups there. So yeah, so my focus was, you know, to get something that was usable and come back and do the annotation once we had those sheet creation workflows sort of nailed down more. And we also need to come up with some cross-section template points for the PGL left and right. So that'll be annotated on the cross-sections if that is desired by the designer. So if I've seen it done different ways by different folks. Currently, the PGL elevation on the cross-section is labeled with the template point PGL is used. So I would just envision that we would have a PGL left and a PGL right. So we'll evaluate a need to update that in the those backbone templates provided in the ITL file. I do think that different designers like to handle this differently. So I'm not sure if a one-size-fits-all approach is going to be best. You know, your PGL might be in a different point in that backbone. Maybe it's on the edge of pavement. Maybe it's on the crown line. I'm not sure not sure how we need to handle that best. And there probably will be some manipulation needed by the designer in your template to make that work right. So those are just a few of the things hope to have done soon. It's just a matter of time of working them in, and a lot of it hinges on a plan production workflow that will work. So we wanted to make sure we had our way to do that first. So before I do switch over to do a quick demo, I wanted to point out that there is a defect here that we've submitted to Bentley, and they've acknowledged that this is a problem. So when we have when we want to show multiple existing ground lines in the same profile model, we're going to use the profile from surface command. So there is as I said, there's this defect here, and there's the number if you want. I think you could submit those to Bentley if you want to track it. You'll be added to the ticket, and they'll send you updates when it's. I've never tried it, but I think they'll send you updates when they as things move along. So the horizontal offset seems to work as expected. If the vertical offset is set to 0, the profile doesn't take on the correct linear feature definition that we've selected. So, and it'll probably display incorrectly, use the wrong level symbology, and you know, just look odd. So then you can't really control that downstream in the sheet creation. And then it wouldn't let you even change to the linear feature definition. It would only let you select from the terrain feature definition. So the workaround there is to just set the vertical offset to be, you know, 0.001, and that seems to adjust things. So even if you created it with a vertical offset of 0, you are able to go in and modify the vertical offset afterwards. Then that would seem to fix the symbology and also let you select the correct linear feature definition. All right, so I'm going for the dreaded live demo here. Hopefully I don't mess anything up and it goes smoothly. So let's okay, so I have a divided highway. This happens to be Interstate 71. There was I rotated the view here so that it was easier to see on the screen rather than running north and south. It was an 84-foot median, so a PGL on each side at 42 feet. So I already have my terrain model attached and set it active, so I'm seeing my existing ground along my center line. So there's one way to do this. If your profile grade line is the same and we don't really need to show two, like I said, you don't really need to use these new feature definitions. You could stick with the geometry feature definition and be just fine. The thing here is you probably need to make sure you show your existing ground on one PGL line or one at the offset of your profile grade line rather than at the center line. I did look through some example plans that I'd worked on in the past. I know that we had a brand new highway project, and it didn't really matter where our profile, the existing ground line was shown, and we had just shown it along the center line. But generally on, you know, reconstruction or new projects or widening projects, you're going to show that at the correct offset. So one way you can accomplish that is just select on the alignment or the profile, or excuse me, the existing ground, and we can look in the properties here, and we could simply change the horizontal offset to be whatever our profile grade line offset was. So if I do that here and I change it to 42 feet to the right, notice what happens. Actually, the property dialog was over my line there, but you should see, I wanted to point out that where the bridge was, you'll see that we're now showing this terrain happened to have the deck elevation included in it. So we'll see that the profile grade line, or the existing ground, then goes across the bridge. So that's one way to do it. And then when you look at the alignments, again, if you only had one, we could just use the GEP alignment feature definition. And we could create our proposed geometry that way. So this should look familiar. Obviously, you would tie into existing somewhere. So you see, so that would be how I'd say to do it on most of your projects where you don't have a divided highway or don't have two profile grade elevations, or don't have an offset that you need to show both. So let me set this back to a 0 offset here. Okay, so now I'm back to where I was. Now what happens if I want to see the profile grade line or existing ground along the left side and along the right side, because when I cut my plan sheets or my profile sheets or my bridge guys want to see the strip grades along those existing lines, we'll need to do that differently. So we'll go to vertical command and we'll go to surface or profile from surface. And this is where I was mentioning there is a bug here. So the vertical offset does need to have some value set into there. And before I do that, I want to, on my feature definition toggle bar, I just wanted to point out, you can also use it from the tool settings dialog. I'm going to go to the profiles folder under linear. And then I'm going to select on the existing ground left feature definition. And it changes the name there for us. And I do want to set my start. I don't remember what I used. 500. This is just to make it a little bit faster for the demo. I don't want to do this entire alignment. It's pretty long. So now I need to locate the element that I want to profile. So that's going to be my center line. And then I'll just reset. I don't want to profile anything else. And I want to use my active terrain. And my start range didn't take it. So 500 plus 0, 0. And my end is going to be 550 plus 0, 0. And I do want that. I'm doing my left, so it's a negative 42 offset here. And again, I have my vertical offset at just 0.001. It's worked when I ran through it yesterday. Come on. There we go. Okay, so if I zoom in here where that bridge crossing is, you'll see I have another existing ground line similar to what I was looking at earlier. And we'll see that it's on the PF ground left level. We can change properties of that if we want to. You could change that offset if you need. After you did it, we could change that to the offset horizontal or vertical, the BN and end, or if you selected the wrong feature definition, you could select that. The issue that I mentioned earlier is if that were set, the vertical offset were set to 0, we weren't getting any of the linear features being shown here. You're only shown the terrain features. So we wanted to make sure we had the linear features selected. Okay, so I'll do the same thing on the right. It's going to be about the exact same line in this location, but I want to just show that the when I select the new ground line right, change my offset to 42. So select my center line, my active terrain, and use my same limits there. My offset's 42 feet right, vertical offset set. Now you'll see there is a slight difference here in that terrain. So you'll see I have a kind of another darker green line. Hopefully you can see that on this screen share. And it's on the existing ground line right level. And then lastly, we need to do our proposed, and it's a similar process. So I'll set the linear feature definition of profiles, and then I'll do my left profile first here, and I'll just create a complex PI. Select a couple points. And we could have turned off, let's look at the levels. If I look at my level display, you'll see that those levels existed. So when you are doing your designing, you could turn off, for example, the ground line at the center line and the ground line on the right, and only show the PGL lines that you're wanting to work on. So making sure you match existing and stuff there, you could do something with that. So I'll do that for the right side. I'll turn everything off except the ground on the right, and I'll select my proposed grade line right here. And I'll just do the same thing. So now if I turn on all my levels again, you'll see I have the ground left and right. I have my PGLs for left and right, and I also have my center line ground line there. And again, you probably wouldn't need the this one if that were the case that you were working on. So you may have noticed I had a little fun with the colors. I was just trying to change things as I was working on these so it was easier to see. And there was no real intent there. I ended up selecting blue and kind of a gold color. And then for the next one, I thought I'll just do scarlet and gray to make all those Buckeye fans happy. I have no allegiance one way or the other, but I just thought some folks might like that. I wasn't intending for it to stay that way. It is. I forgot to go back and change it, so it may change in the future. So we'll see. So okay, my headset turned off. Okay, so we'll see. We can turn levels on and off, and that's really all I'm going to show here. So I'll just save my settings in this case, and now we're ready to do some planned production, and switch over to another DGN file. Okay, so here is a GP file. It's GP001 is all I created, and all I've attached to this for this demo is the BK file that I was just working in. And because it is the file I was working in, I'm going to refresh this or reload this. Then I should just be able to let me try and reopen this real quick. Okay, because those levels were new, they weren't turned on, so we'll just turn those on, and you'll see everything that I just created in my BK file. For this example, I'll just focus on the left side, for example, so I'll turn off everything except the left. And then again, I'll save my settings. So here what I want to do is I'm going to go create a couple of name boundaries, and I'm just going to do the profile here. And it's actually just going to be the standard profile where we have the same sides stacked together, just to show you how the process is supposed to work. So I'll select, I need to do my profile drawing seed, and then I'll set it to 50 scale. And my method is going to be by stations. If you had your plan together and you wanted to match, you'd obviously set that to from a plan group. And then I think I just need to identify my profile view, and then pick my start location. So I'll just make it 500 where I started my profile. And then I'm just going to do a couple of sheets. Just do one. And then my vertical exaggeration for 50 is going to be 5. For 50 scale, it's 5. I have everything else just as the default, and I have on the create drawing, show dialog. So data point here a couple times. Finish that. So now I'm in the create drawing dialog. I'm just going to create these in the same DGN file. It is going to create a drawing model for each name boundary, but it will only create one sheet in this profile. Now, in the example that I want to get to, I want to be able to create this one drawing boundary on the left side and then create a drawing boundary on the right side, and then have those created onto one sheet file. So the annotation scale will be set to 50. I'll change my my grid to 10-foot verticals for the 50 scale. And lastly, everything else on my sheet model looks fine. Detail scale is 50, and my annotation scale on sheet is at the 1:1. So we'll cross our fingers and make sure this works on the demo for me. So here you can see I have my plan sheet now, and I have my existing ground that was on my left and my profile grade line that was on the left side. And then those are annotated as well. And you can see here, like I was mentioning earlier, I didn't include the dimensions because that's handled with the sheet annotation a little differently. So we could just manually draw in a dimension line, and I guess I would recommend that in the drawing model. You'll see some other profile annotations here, and you'll see other strip grade elevations here. I'll show that in the drawing model in a second. It's annotating everything that was in that BK file. So in the drawing models, there will be another step. So if I just switch to the profile 2, I figured this might happen. A little level display issue, which I'm sure we've all experienced. So I'll just turn on my left side here from my reference file so I can see my line work. Then if I switch back to my active model, you'll see that the way this was annotated, I made the text that's annotated the same color as the profile grade lines or the existing ground. So if I look at, I have some red. This is where that vertical curve was on the right side. That was red. So I can turn off the proposed text for the PGL right. And then on the strip grades for the same thing, I have a proposed strip grade right. So those are red, so those get turned off. And now I just see the blue ones. I did also have another alignment back behind there. So if I turn off the proposed strip grades left, you'll see that that other, the proposed alignment feature definition was also displayed there. So that's this PFP text. Oops, that's the wrong one. Oh, it's just strip grades 20. Can't remember why the 20 was there. I think we did that so we could do 20 scale, had elevations of every 25 feet, 50 would 50 scale would be every 50 feet. I think the intent was to change that manually. But anyways, you can see that you can turn those off, and they're independent of each other. So again, so I'll just leave on my strip grades left so that again I can see that visually see that the colors match, so I sort of know just by looking at it which is which. I could turn off my PFP text that was for that other alignment, and that profile annotation goes away. The same thing goes for the strip grades, for the existing strip grades. So I have some on the right that are displayed on top there. I have some that are on the left, and then I have the existing at the center line. So when you get into the plan production, the idea here is we'll just swap out the level display you want to see for the particular sheet that you need. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward. I guess I wouldn't mind some feedback on this when you guys get there, or if you attempt to use it. The other thing I had mentioned earlier was that I changed a couple levels. So the proposed station elevation text is now on a separate level from the other text. So I think it was on the same level as this proposed profile text. So we can turn that off or keep that on and turn the other text off individually. So I'll just set this back to the left levels that I wanted. I can save my settings, and then I should be able to go back to my my sheet model. Again, we have the level display issue. You may need to come in, if you see this, you may need to come in and turn the live nesting off and then control the levels display differently here. Hopefully that's addressed. You know, Bentley's hinted the next version has a lot of planned production updates coming, but as JD mentioned, they won't give any indication of when that's coming. So hopefully that will affix a lot of the level display type stuff that we've all been seeing on plan, profile, cross section. So I'll just stop there. I think I showed what I wanted to show. I can go back. Again, the idea was that, you know, use level display to control. Oh, I lost. Okay. I lost my profile lines again. So, but the idea is that we're going to use a level display, and I don't know, I've had some issues with other demos that I've done in level display, so it may just be me. Hopefully it's not everyone else. So that's what I have for that. And
It's your display overrides on the reference there.
oh, thanks. Yeah, for this reference, it needs to be. Yeah, thanks, JD. I knew I forgot a step. And then as far as the sheet stuff, I think that needs to happen. So those levels were maintained here, but then when we go over to the sheet model, still not maintaining them. So we might have to just do the set the no nesting there.
Yeah, you just turned it off a
Oh,
second ago when we were talking.
Oh, I did. Yeah. So we might need to come in and do
Well, not there. Just on the drawing is only if you don't want to control it from your drawing or your design model. Then go to the drawing model and change the overrides to allow, and then you can control it on the drawing model.
Okay, right. Thanks. All right. All right, so I'm going to leave it at that. I think that's all I have for this session. Looks like I'm not sure, am I right on time? A little bit over, so I apologize for that. Okay, so any questions? I'm not sure, I wasn't watching the chat.
We literally just had some come in a second ago.
Okay, well, I think probably because we are, I ran a little bit over. We'll try to answer those in the chat, and then I'll let Eric, or who's next? JD? No, I think Eric is coming up next.
Yep, Eric, and then you.
Yeah, so I'll let Eric take over, and then we'll try to address the questions in the chat and publish those if they're needed.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Let me go ahead and get my information queued up here. Okay, I'm not sure why my video is not coming through. Let me, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to talk about cross-section annotation, and I've got quite a bit of information here to share. So let's just go dive right into it. So the topics I'm going to cover is just an overview of the process and some of the background things that need to be defined for the cross-section annotation. And then we'll cover some of the annotation options that Bentley offers for our grid and our cross-sections, for individual point annotations, segment annotations, and then I want to wrap it up with customizing your own annotation group. So the ODOT annotations are tended to be pretty generic and address a lot of scenarios, but it's not going to address everything, and you may have to make some customizations. So just as an overview of the process, the cross-section annotations are placed in the drawing model for each cross-section, and that includes a grid for the cross-section. So there's just an example there of a typical cross-section in the drawing model. So what can be annotated? Well, I mentioned those. Bentley provides 4 types of annotations, actually. So the grid, linear annotations or segments, point annotations, and the last one is a frame annotation, which we're not using for any of the ODOT stuff, so I'm not going to cover that. So the annotations are defined in the Ohio DOT feature definitions, DGN Lib, and it looks like I've got a problem there on my slide. It's in my dialogues over top of the text, but each annotation is defined as a separate annotation definition, and then those definitions are put together in a group. So looking at the microstation Explorer dialog, our open road standards, and then looking just at the library here. So starting from the bottom up is the individual annotation definitions, and then those definitions are grouped together in an annotation group, and then there's 2 different annotation groups in ODOT standards currently. That's odd. I wonder why that reset those. I had that. So I'll fix the PowerPoint before we distribute that. So the annotation group is selected when you're generating the sheets. So this is in the sheet clipping process. When I get to the create drawing dialog, it's going to default to the appropriate annotation group for the sheet scale that you're placing, but that's where that is selected when you initially process. So then when the sheets are generated, that annotation group and all the definitions are copied into your container file. And once that's been copied into your container file, those definitions can be edited in that container file. And then after you make edits in each drawing model, you'll have to use the model annotation commands to remove those annotations and then to re-annotate that model. So some background stuff that you need. Annotations use 2 different things. They use element templates and they use text favorites. So the element templates are used to define the symbology, and then the text favorites are used to compute values, such as the elevation of a point or the slope of a segment. So a lot of users have never had to really work directly with element templates or text favorites. So I want to start just kind of giving a little background information here on those items. So what I've got open here is my container file, and I've already clipped some sheets, and so that the information has been copied into the container file. So if I go to the place text command, there's an insert favorite option here, and that's a text favorite. So that list is just the text favorites that are configured in the ODOT workspace. And if I go down to the bottom, I see some cross-section text favorites. So there's text favorites there for in the area and cut volumes and things like that. Then there's some ones for like our point offset or our point elevation, the slope of a line or the station. So these text favorites have already been configured. If I pick the manage button, that's where I can create new text favorites. So it's going to show me the library and those text favorites that were in that list, and I can't edit those, but what I can do is in my file, I can create a new favorite and then give it a name. And then over towards the right is where I'm going to define the text style and stuff for that text favorite. So the field type, one of the field types is open roads cross-section fields, and then that sets the subtype to cross-section annotations. So here's just the different types of things that can be annotated, or at least extract values for a text favorite from a cross-section. So just looking at the point, I can extract any of these pieces of information for the point. Once I've selected that on the right, I can set, you know, my number of decimal places and things like that, and then just accept that, and it adds it to that text favorite. So then I can just save that, and that's now a text favorite that's available in this file. So if there's something that you need added to the standards, that's something that you could just contact ODOT through their support request. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and not save that. So that's just a quick overview of a text favorite and how one is configured. The second thing that's used in our annotation is an element template. So on the attributes group on the home tab is the element templates. And again, these are all read from ODOT's library. So if I go and manage these, I can see the element templates that are coming from the library or any that might be in the active file. So what I'm going to do is just expand the feature definitions DGN Lib, and there's a group for annotations here. And under annotations, there's sheets, and then there's access for cross sections. So these are element templates for various things that would get labeled in a cross section. So for example, the XS_text element template is set to the sheet text level, and then by level for the color, style, and weight. It's a primary class element, no transparency, and a priority of 500. So the element templates just define symbology. In my video, I should have clicked on the excess quantity table, because that one is an example of something that places a cell. So it just adds the cell name to that definition for that element template. So that's just a little background on the text favorites and element templates. So if I'm going to edit an annotation definition after I've processed it, what I need to do in Explorer is just right click on that annotation group name, and then I can choose the manage option to edit that. So here's a video. We're going to just go ahead and manage this text favorite and just kind of talk about the dialogue. So I'm in my container file here, and I've got my Explorer dialog open, and I have the 5-scale excess annotation group selected, and I did hit play, so I must be talking about something in the video there. All right, so in our active file under annotation groups, there's that 5-scale excess annotation that was copied in, and I can right click on that and pick manage. It also is available in the properties dialog. There's the annotation list, and it says it varies. If I click in there, I get a little button that'll let me manage that. So here's the dialog for the managing the annotations. And on the left is all the different annotation definitions that are in that particular. And those were created by adding new, and there's those 4 types. And you can also use ones that have already been defined. So if I say add existing, these are individual annotation definitions that are in the ODOT library. So there's commands across the top there to delete one, copy and paste one, move it up or down in the list, import it from an XML file or export it to an XML file. There's also a button to select the template that you're going to be working with for defining your annotations, and it's going to show that over there in the right. So I'm just going to pick a template out of the template library, and then if I think I do the fit command here, it's going to display that. So you've got commands across the top right for the view. You can turn off the display of that template. Sometimes when you're working with the annotations and you click on them, it's a little slower if it has to update the display. So turning that off can be useful. So there's a fit, and it's just showing me that template. There's a window command. It's a little different. These aren't microstation commands. I have to drag through it for that to work. There's fit or zoom commands. The pan left and pan right kind of work different from what I expect. I hit pan left and the section's moving to the right. What I'm viewing is to the right or left, and then up or down, just pan up, and pan down moves it up or down. So those are a little inconsistent in how they're defined. Then the last two, there's a hide selected. So whatever I have selected is displayed, and most of the annotations are displayed. It doesn't show a lot of the, well, I'll just leave it at that. So the PGL is placed at the bottom, and if I can zoom in or out with the commands or use the mouse wheel. If I highlight, it does refit that, but if I zoom back in, you can see the current annotation definition is highlighted for the PGL. The value that's shown there is just a placeholder. It's going to be read from the text favorite. It's going to go read the elevation of that PGL point in the cross section. So this is just kind of overview of the dialog. So from here, we'll kind of go into some of these and talk about how they're configured. So I'm going to start with the grid annotation. And this is defined in our ODOT standards for a typical cross-section grid. The grid includes the station annotation and the offsets across the bottom and elevation labels on the right. And this is something you probably won't need to edit. So here's a little video that talks a bit about the grid. So this is in that Manage Annotations dialog. And if I'm creating one from scratch, I would use the Add button up here to add that in. And I would select the grid annotation option. So in the ODOT stuff, it's named 5-scale excess sheet annotation, and it matches the name of the annotation group. So the grid itself has several parameters that can be defined, and I'm going to highlight that so we can see, everything that's controlled by the grid. So I mentioned it's the grid lines, it's the station value, and the elevations across the bottom. And if I scroll over to the right, that's the offsets across the bottom and the elevations on the side. And again, the values here are just placeholders. It doesn't matter. So I'm not going to go through all the parameters here, but the bottom is turned on, the top's turned on, and then there's a horizontal template. That's a microstation element template. So it's using the excess sheet grid element template for that. And if I come down and look at a couple of these, going down to the horizontal axis title, that's the one that's going to control the station label. So you can see in that horizontal axis title group, it's set to draw is true and the angle is 0. And there it's using the text favorite of the XS station for that annotation. So that's how that's defined. It's using a center justification for that, and it's using that XS text element template to control the level, style, and weight of that. So that's all I really want to talk about with the grid. Like I said, you probably will not need to edit the grid. So let's move on and talk about our point annotations. So point annotations are defined by either a point name or by a feature definition. And points can be annotated with either text or a cell. And the text annotations use those text favorites to compute the values, such as a station, offset, elevation, point name, or feature. So this is just zoomed in on the bottom again, the XGL and PGL elevation annotations. And as I said, the station is annotated with the grid. So we've run into a couple of user support issues with this. So I want to talk about this a little bit. The PGL elevation does require a point named PGL in the template. So it's going to find that point at my cross section. Actually, it's a 3D line string generated from that point, and it's going to annotate it using the excess point elevation annotation. So we had a consultant working on a project where the project was just shoulders and side slopes. They didn't actually have a PGL, so they didn't have a PGL point in their cross section, so they weren't getting that annotated. But the PGL point also triggers the earthwork table, and they weren't getting an earthwork table. So I'm going to talk about that a little more in another slide. So that's something to be aware of, is that PGL point does trigger the earthwork table, that placement of that cell, and there's another option for that. The XGL annotation does require a point named XGL in the template. So again, we've had some people, that's just a null point in the ODOT templates, and we've had some people delete that, and then they don't get the existing elevations. And that's why you need to have that point in your template in order to get those existing elevations. So again, my text got reset somehow behind my dialogues. I'll fix that in the PowerPoint for distribution. But that XGL and PGL annotation does have to have a feature definition defined. So we did have a support request where the user had the PGL and XGL in the template, but it was defined with the feature definition was set to none, and it wasn't picking that up. So it does need to have the feature definition. And this is the point properties dialog in the template creation is where this is. So make sure you've got the feature definition assigned for that. Okay, so I'm going to skip through this video here. This one's going to talk about some of the parameters for our PGL, and it applies to the XGL as well. So that's been defined again in the ODOT annotation group, and that was defined as a point annotation. So I'm not sure what I'm talking about here in the video. Here we go. So it was added as a point annotation, and then once that's added, you can define the point using the location information here. So if I put my focus in that field, there's a box I can click on that's going to open the dialog that I can manage this annotation filter. So when I'm working with points, I can tell it, hey, let's just use all the points in the template, that the cross-section intersections, or I can just filter this by a list of points. And that's what the PGL and XGL are defined as, just to do a list of points. So that's at the very bottom. And I can use that select points from template to choose my template, and it's going to show me the template, and it's going to show me anything that's annotated there on the right, and then a list of all the points on the left. They're highlighting those in white. If I remove it from the list, you can see it's just shown as red. So I'll do a fit on this, and I can click on the points, and it will add those to the list. So you can see I picked on a point for the left tie, and multiple points were highlighted. And that's because in the template definition, those have a feature name override assigned of left tie. And in the point list, those are shown in red. So anything that has a feature name override will have red text in the point list. So I'm going to remove that one, and let's go back and just put the PGL back in here. And then I'll just close this dialog. So that's how that's defined. There are some different expressions that can be used. In this particular one, we're not using any. I am going to talk about those a little bit in another video. So once I have my point defined that I'm annotating, I can annotate it with either text or a cell, and then I'm going to choose the template that is going to be used for that. So this one's annotated with text. We're not placing a leader line, so I just turn that off, close that up. The PGL is going to be placed 0.75 units from the bottom border. So that's what controls the vertical location of that. So I turned on highlight, and we can see it in yellow. The horizontal location, it's going to be controlled by the location of the point itself, wherever the cross section intersects that point. So in this case, my PGL was right at the center line. So it's right at the 0 offset. Okay, we're not placing a cell, so I'm going to collapse that. There's where that prefix is defined for a PGL space. And there's my style is the label center style, and it's using that XS point elevation text favorite to compute the elevation value. So that's an example of annotating a single point. And we go ahead and move on to our next slide. So ditch elevations are also another single point annotation. And I want to mention this in the template library a while back, Matt and JD made some changes to the names of the points, and they're now using L-ditch inside and R-ditch inside for that inside point on the ditches. So some of the older templates used just L-ditch and R-ditch. And the annotation definition has been updated with these new names. But in my case, I'm running a template that was created with the L-ditch, R-ditch. Or, well, maybe I think it was the ditch inside outside, but my annotation definition is an older annotation definition. So here's how you can take care of that if you run into this situation. So what I've got here is just a cross section. You can see I don't have any ditch annotations, and that point there is R-ditch-inside. So what I want to do is go back to my container file and make an edit to my annotation definition to include that point name. So here's the container file, and in the container file, I'm going to browse through the standards of the local file, annotation groups, cross-section drawing, and there's my annotation group. We'll right-click to manage that. So this is going to be my ditch annotation right, and you can see the location. It says on top. Let's take a look at that. So I'm using a list of points, and I am using an expression of on top and a point named r-ditch. So I can select that from the templates. And again, this is an older annotation definition. It didn't have the r-ditch-inside. So I'm just going to pick that from the list and add it to the points that will be annotated, and just apply that expression change and close the dialog. Not going to make any other changes. Just go ahead and close that out and go back to my cross section. In my cross section model, I'm in the Open Roads Modeling tab, Drawing Production, and I'm going to remove the model annotations. I could do this for all the models or just this model, and then I'm going to re-annotate that. And then you'll see I'll have my ditch annotation for that right ditch inside point when this re-annotates. So it's justified by the top left, and that's going to be directly below that ditch inside. And I can see the offset, and it might be something I want to tighten up a bit. If I want to tighten up that offset, I can just go back to my annotation definition and change that vertical offset value. Okay, so I think that's about everything in this video. So let's move forward. I mentioned the earthwork table. The PGL point is what triggers that earthwork table placement. And I mentioned a project where they did not have a PGL and they weren't getting the earthwork table. So what we did is add it to the annotation group, and if it finds a point named EW_table, it'll place this cell in the template. The location of the point really doesn't matter. It's just, is it there? Yes. It places the table in the upper right. So it's using the border top and the border right for the placement of that cell. So that's something to be aware of with an earthwork table. You can just add a null point named EW_table, and it will trigger the placement of that. Right away, there's been various seminars where we've talked about right away, so I'm not going to go too deep in this, but the right away annotations use the feature definition. So what I've got here is just an example of one of them. So the expression, it's using a conditional expression. So it's looking at all the points, and it says if the point feature definition equals this right away proposed aerial easement, then it's going to annotate that, and then those annotation definitions are set up with a cell. So there's some information in webinar 12 on open topics. There's other, we've covered right-of-way in a couple of different sessions. So I'm just going to leave it at that for right-of-way annotations. So let's talk about segments and annotating the slope. So our ODOT annotation definition looks at a pair of points on top of the cross section to annotate the slope. And the points are defined generically. They're not hard-coded by the point name. And there's a statement in there, the segment must be greater than 2.9 feet, or actually not less than 2.9. It's kind of a little odd logic, but if it's less than 2.9, it's not going to be annotated. There's a reason for that, and I'll talk about that here as we take a look at this video. So again, here's some slope examples. So if it's less than 10%, it's going to label it with a percent. If it's greater than 10%, it's going to label it with a ratio. And that's defined in the text favorite itself. And I can see I didn't get one on my back slope over there. I don't have any annotations for the shoulders. There's one for the left lane, but not the right lane. That's actually a known problem in the 10.9 release. It sometimes misses a segment, so that's been logged with Bentley. And I'll talk about the shoulders here in a minute. Then I can see on the left side, I did get an annotation on the back slope, but I didn't have an annotation on the back slope on the right. So what I want to do is look at my annotation group, and let's go manage that. and take a look at the slope definition. So it's in the ODOT stuff, it just is slope, and that was added originally as a linear annotation, and then parameters were set for that. And I'll look at the location values for this. So we are using some, we're looking at all the segments, and it could also be defined to create a list of segments, and I'll show you that in the last video I've got. And it is using some expressions here. So there's 3 expressions. So it's saying, hey, 0.1 on top and 0.2 on top. So those are generic. They're not using point names. And that's just coming from this list. It says click or drag to add an expression. So you just click on 0.1 on top, and then I think you have to double click actually. And then that and logical operator, and then 0.2 on top is how that is built. So that's the first condition, 0.1 and 0.2 on top, and it's not less than 2.9 feet. So why 2.9 feet? So the idea behind that was on a shoulder in the ODOT template library, the shoulders have an intermediate point in the middle that's used for the break on super elevation. And that shoulder break is typically 2 feet or 2.5 feet, depending on your shoulder width. So the idea was not to annotate that shoulder as 2 separate segments, and it doesn't get annotated at all on a 4-foot shoulder. So 2.9 was used. If it's greater than that, then it's going to. So I'm going to just remove this. Now, historically, on older plans, you wouldn't annotate pavement slopes at all. So it kind of doesn't need to be there. The other condition is 0.1 elevation does not equal 0.2 elevation. That would be our ditch. So we don't want to annotate a slope on anything that's flat. All right, so I've made changes there. I'm going to come back and just remove my model annotations, and then re-annotate the model. And we'll see popping in on my shoulder are those 2 annotations based on that shoulder breakpoint that's defined in the middle. So there's a couple ways you could, if you're going to show this slope, you could just delete one of them. Sorry, it's a manual process. It had to be done in every section, and then you can move that one over. Another option would be to, if you don't have super elevation, go back to your template, delete that point out of the template, and you'd have to reconstrain your outside shoulder point, and then reprocess your model, and then you won't have that point in the middle. So I've got the same thing on the other side. And here you can see I now have that back slope annotated that was missing before, and that's because the segment length was less than 2.9, and that's why that wasn't annotated before. So just some things to look out for on the slope annotation, and why you may not get some pieces and some edits you can make there to adjust that. Now you can create your own annotation group, and this allows you to control exactly what's annotated, and this will be created in the container file. And you can reuse some ODOT annotation definitions that are already available. So here's a video that's going to talk about creating a custom annotation group. So I've already processed the sections, and that annotation group has been copied into the active file. So one thing I could do is copy the ODOT one and edit it, or I could create a new one and just give it a name. So we'll name this my excess annotation, and we'll manage the new one. So I've got no definitions at all included. So I can add new definitions, or I can use some out of the ODOT library. To do that, let's try that again. I'll just expand this, and there's all the available annotation definitions that are in the ODOT library. So I'm going to annotate the PGL, so I'll just use that. I'm going to annotate the XGL. I probably bring in the grid next. So there's that excess scale, 5-scale excess sheet annotation. That's our gridded area. And I bring in a couple more. I'm trying to remember what I do. Oh, if I want that earthwork table, I can bring in quantity table, or the quantity table using the EW_table point. So I can bring one of those in if I want that. Click on it. And I'm also showing here that if you have right-of-way, you don't need to include all of these. You could just go select only the ones that are applicable to your particular project. So you don't need to have all of those right-of-way items. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new linear annotation here. So I can define my slope annotation for the segments that I want to be annotated. So I'll just give it a name. I called it linear slopes. And in location, I'll click the little button here. I actually want to pick my template before I go define that. So I'm going to just use that same template that I used earlier and OK that. So now let's go ahead and define this annotation filter. So instead of using all segments, I'm going to create a list of segments. And once I select that option at the bottom, I've got the area where I'm going to select those segments from the template. So let's go ahead and pick that, and it's going to show me my template. And I should be able to use this button to select those graphically. And I've noticed when I did this, I got that. So I've not talked to Bentley yet. I don't know if that's just my data or if there's a problem there. So instead of selecting it, there's a list here of point 1 and point 2. And it's tedious a bit, but I can scroll through that list to select the appropriate things. Well, if I remember right, those were using point name overrides, so they're highlighted in red. So I'm coming down to the bottom and I'm seeing those listed here, and that's mostly the ones I'm going to want to annotate. So just going to pick them from the list and add them to the list. And as I add them, you'll see them highlighted. There's my outside shoulder to my graded shoulder. Here's ditch inside to ditch outside. I'm not going to annotate a slope on that. That's my ditch. And here's the ditch outside to the tie. So I'm just going through and picking these. So again, it's a bit tedious based on the point names. And I will talk to Bentley about that exception I got when I graphically selected the point and see what I get back from them. Again, I'm actually running in 2020 release 3. So it's a 10.9 version. I'm running that version for all these videos and using the current ODOT standards. So earlier when we talked about compatibility with standards, if you're ahead of ODOT, that's okay. If you're behind, then you'll probably run into problems. Okay, for the slopes, I'm going to annotate it with text, and I'm going to pick an element template for that. So the element template is going to control the level, color, style, and weight of that text. So we'll use just that XS text element template. I'm not going to place any dimension lines with that. For my placement of the slope, I don't want an absolute angle. I want it to be tangent to the element that it's annotating. And I'm not going to set a vertical offset. I'm going to use a text style. I'm not placing a cell, so I'll collapse that. I'm going to use a text style that has built into it a bit of an offset. So there's this label center descender. That's something that's new in Connect as a justification as a center descender. And that gives it an offset built into it. So I don't need to set an offset value. So for the slopes, we're going to use a text favorite of our XS slope. And again, these are coming from the ODOT library or any that you have defined in your container file. And we're not going to do any view rotation. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and go back and annotate my cross section. So I'm back on my cross section. So I'm going to remove my annotations and we'll go ahead and annotate this. And you're going to see when I was picking my segments, I did not pick any pavement or shoulder segments. So I'm annotating using my excess annotation. And I didn't include a ditch, so I don't have ditches. But you see, I didn't include pavement or shoulders, so I don't have those annotations. And like I said, historically, we wouldn't annotate pavement slopes anyway. So that may be desirable, and then you don't have to worry about cleaning up any of those shoulder annotations. So that's the process to create your own group, to pick the segments that you want to annotate. And I know some users that like to do it that way and just go that and create their own. So a couple of known issues. 2020 release 2 update 8. I ran into removing model annotations and re-annotating doesn't always function. Sometimes it generates an exception log and doesn't complete the task. So I've run into that and we've logged it. It was confirmed by Bentley. As I said, I'm running 2020 release 3 update 9, and you can see I was removing and re-annotating with no problems. So that's apparently been resolved with update 3. And then in update 3, occasionally some of the segments don't get annotated. We've seen that, and we've had a couple reports of that from a couple consultants, and that's been logged with Bentley. So a couple things to be aware of. So that's everything I've got to cover here. I see there's a couple questions. How would you export the annotation group so that you could use it in another file in the same project or another project? As soon as I run sections, that annotation group copied to my container file. What you can do, I don't have ORD open, so I'm not going to go live. What you can do is you can right-click on an annotation group from the OHDOT feature definition library and pick copy, and then you can go down to the feature definition list for your file under the annotation groups and go in there and paste it in. So you can copy and paste from the ODOT standard before you even process it, and then you could make adjustment or changes to the copy before you've actually processed. I don't know if that exactly answers the question, but that's an option. Then someone else said they've had the same issue selecting segments using that plus sign with that exception I got. So I'll submit that to Bentley. I suspect it's already been logged by someone else. So that's all I've got. If you guys have any questions, you can throw them in the chat, or of course you can use ODOT's support request stuff to ask a question. So at that, I'm going to turn it back over to Matt, I think. Is that right? Matt's next?
Yeah, Matt's next.
Okay.
We have hit our time limit, so hopefully you can stay on with us. Matt's got some interesting stuff to talk about for plan preparation and presentation. So I'll turn it over to Matt at this point.
Okay, thanks guys. So we saved the best for last. We are running over, as Mark said, so I'll try to make it fairly quick. This part is going to be interactive, like we had JD had previously. So we're going to use some forms, and I'll paste some links in the Q&A or the chat window here in a minute, and get some feedback. So I just wanted to mention, we want your feedback, and we're going to try to grab some of it this way and this, using these forms. But you can always submit any feedback you have with the support request. So that said, I'll go on to my slides here. We have a couple of changes, and a lot of these have been based on user feedback. As far as color printing or plotting of utilities, there was a OHDOT utpen.tbl, which is going to plot the utility levels in color. So most of the time, folks would use this just to review and maybe meet with utilities and take out into the field, those kind of things. It wasn't really intended to be used on plan submittals, and maybe in the future we will get into some color plotting. But at the moment, that's just sort of basically for informational purposes. So the request was that users wanted to see the drainage, the lighting, and signal levels also to be included, so they would plot in color. So I don't know that anyone's really going to have an issue with that. So the proposed change is then to incorporate those levels into that pen table. So on the form here, we just like your feedback on that. I have a feeling most folks aren't going to have an opinion there, and it's not going to matter for the everyday plan production. So the other change related to color plotting or even viewing stuff on screens is that yellow or color 4, for example, for your oil, gas, lighting, signals, even the pavement marking levels are difficult to see on the white background. So in your sheet model, You know, you're struggling to see those, and then even on a PDF, you know, obviously you have a white background there. That's difficult to see if you create those color plots. And then, you know, a paper plot is going to give you the same result. So if you're taking that onto the field, you're not going to see some of those yellow features. The only thing I've done in the past there was add like an aerial image as a background that sometimes would help that. But anyways, the proposed change here is that rather than change anything in the pen table, we were thinking of actually just changing the bi-level color for any level that use color 4 to be color 20. And again, we'll poll you on your thoughts on that here in a second. So this is the color table, and you can see the kind of the difference between yellow on color 4 on the left and color 20 on the right. So it's a little more orangish, so it stands out, but not quite as orange as the telecom type colors. So hopefully you can still differentiate that. We think that's a decent change, but again, we're looking for some feedback there. So here's just a couple screenshots. Hopefully on the live event, these come through pretty clear. The top is using color 4 and the bottom is using color 20. And so you can sort of see how it's a little cleaner on the bottom, and you can at least make those out. It may get kind of close to those telecom, those orange levels. I think 6, I think is what it is. But so we'd like your thoughts on this. The other one, and I guess the other thing is when we get to the poll is how often do you actually use that color pen table? The other item that's come up a couple times is that the centerline line style for our geometry is not displaying as we would like. With the ORD or the OHDOT workspace, that line style was changed to use line code of 7 instead of the V8i or the CADD custom centerline line style. So it was mostly done for scaling purposes. V8i line styles were specific to a plot scale, and GeoPack DNC Manager allowed us to display those multiple times, basically on different levels, and we could just turn on or off the ones we wanted. In ORD, we can only define one line style per feature definition, so it makes it a little bit difficult to do that scaling type issue. Also, the V8i line styles, and users would tend to shift the dashes, and so that you could line up the dash with the station tick, and that line style shift wasn't being retained with ORD if the sheet or the model was re-annotated. So, and then also with that centerline line style 7, you know, our pen table didn't handle that very well. So if you've plotted anything, you probably noticed that it doesn't appear very clean. So the proposed change here, it obviously adjusts the plot driver to plot line code 7 with increased lengths to the long and short dashes. So here's where we'd like a little bit of feedback. Here is the top view. There is the current OHDOT pen table, and it's the same line style, just printed at different weights. So you see as that weight increases, the line style even looks even worse and even just becomes a solid line. On the bottom are some of the dashes, just an example of what we're looking at with the different line styles, or different weights, excuse me, so that you can differentiate those on your plots. I don't think we ever use weights 2 or 3 very much for any of those proposed, but you might have a purpose that you've changed that for. So I wanted to at least include something like that, or just show an example of that. All right, so I'll stop here, and I will post a in the announcements window. You should see a link to the forums, and I will drag that over so we can take a look. So when we look at this form, again, we just like gather, you know, who's responding, and you know, if we need to contact you later, the email address makes things a lot easier. So do you currently use the ODOT pen table, yes or no? If you answer no, you'll get another question here. And as you answer some of these, I won't read them all. We'll just give it a minute. Let us know whether you like the color 20 idea. You either like it or hate it. And if you have another idea, you know, these questions ask you also will ask you or let you fill these in. And we will I'll probably wait a day or two to collect or gather all these responses, but I'll pull this over here in a minute and see. Actually, because there's a delay, I'll come back to the responses at the end and see what we have there. So if you don't mind filling that out for us, we'd appreciate that. So those ones are pretty straightforward. I don't know that there's going to be too many folks who are going to have any heartburn over those. The next one, feel like everyone is going to have an opinion here. So we wanted to get some feedback before we went ahead and made a change, and then had a bunch of people not really liking what we did. So as far as fonts go, there was a switch made in the OHDOT workspace that switched us from the old resource fonts to true type fonts. So in the old workspace, the ODOT CADD workspace for V8I, we had a straight font for existing geometry and a slanted font for proposed geometry. And several users commented that it's difficult to differentiate the existing and proposed alignment text there. So there was also this unwritten rule I think everyone got into using as far as annotating other existing and proposed features. A lot of folks used the straight font and maybe a weight of 0 for existing, and then for proposed they used a slanted and a weight of 1, which that also helped sort of differentiate existing and proposed features when you're looking at your plans. So I don't know if that was ever documented, or I think it was just kind of an unwritten rule that everyone sort of followed. So that's part of this as well. As I state here, it's mostly was related to centerline annotation and stationing and cardinal points, but the old V8I fonts allowed us to be able to, or the resource fonts allowed us to be able to control the weight a little bit differently as well. We could increase those versus what we're able to do with a true type font. So fonts going forward, we'd prefer to stick to true type fonts. So what we're proposing here is to change the standard font for new projects. So we'll need to come up with a way, sort of similar to what maybe JD did related to the drainage feature definitions that recently went out. So we had an old DGN library and a new DGN library. So no matter what happens here, if we change something like this, we'll make sure to provide some guidance, and it will be for new projects. Whether you change it on a current project is going to be up to you. So again, we'd like some user feedback here. This is probably the one we want the most. And here are a couple examples of what we were looking at. So you'll see the Arial font on the top left there for just a general note. Then we have the Calibri font in the middle. So that would be a slanted font where we would, that would be mainly the proposed type annotations and proposed geometry type text. And then we'll use Calibri Light for existing. So it's a little bit thinner, and the spacing for both of the Calibri fonts is a little bit narrower than the Arial font. So it might leave some more room to cram some more text on a drawing if you want. Also, we have some sample notes I put there with the same font changes, so we see see what they would look like. And again, the Calibri will save us a little bit of space on the plan sheet, or allow us more room and not have that's maybe so much cluttered text. The next couple of slides, I will post some more links here. We posted some PDFs that make the plan sheets easier to see, and let me do that now so you guys can review these as I go through the slides. So the first one will be of the Arial. It's going to be a PDF of a schematic plan with the Arial font, and then the second one is the Calibri font. And just a shout out and a thanks to Mead and Hunt for providing that sheet. We did remove the title block information, but it had their example had a good, or their sheet showed a good example of this, so we went ahead and stuck with it. So here on my screenshot, I zoomed into the lower left corner of the sheet. You'll see this is the current Arial slanted fonts, and it's hard to tell which one of these. There's an existing alignment here, then the proposed alignment that shoots off to the right here. So it's hard to tell which one is which. So on the next slide, I've changed it to show the Calibri fonts, and you can see, I can use the pointer. You can see the existing font looks different than the proposed font. Same with here, we have the spiral that labeled differently than the PC. So a little bit easier way to differentiate those. These are the same areas, just zoomed in side by side so you could kind of see them. I just thought it'd be easier to look at them together. So if you want to open up those links I sent and take a look at those, it gives you the whole sheet, and the bigger area where things overlap and they have the best example is probably that lower left corner. So that said, I'm going to post the last poll that we have related to the font changes. So if you don't mind opening that up, and again, that one, same thing, we just like your contact information in case we want to reach out to you. Do you agree with this proposed font change from Arial to Calibri? Yes, you either like it, no, you hate it. And if you don't like it or have a better idea, please give us a description of what you feel like something we should consider. And then do you have another TrueType font that you'd like us to consider as well? And I think that was it. Oh, there's a couple other questions at the bottom. I was just curious to see if we were to make a change, would you apply this to current projects, or would you only go with new projects, which would be our recommendation? So, and I think question 9 sort of repeats itself, but if you don't mind, take a look at that. And what I'm going to do now, I hope the live feed has caught up, and I will bring over the poll or responses for the plotting. Okay, so we've got 45 responses here, and do you currently use the OHDOT UT pen table to plot color utilities? A lot of yeses there, actually more than I expected. So, and a couple people didn't know it was there, sort of suspected that would happen as well. How often do you use it? Not very often. It doesn't look like, a few times a year. So mostly for those utility coordination type things. And it looks like most folks would just prefer us to add it to the current pen table. Yeah, so we want to add it to the current pen table rather than creating another one that would do those separately. Okay, we like the color 20 change, so that's good to hear. And we like the lines code of 7 changes. So thanks for you folks who have all responded. We've got a total of 46 there, it looks like at that point. We'll leave this open for the rest of the day, and you can come back and add it if you need to.
Hey, guys, that's a really low response rate, guys. Come on, you guys paying attention? We'd really appreciate if you guys would fill this out. I mean, I got up to almost 80 on mine, and I got to close to 100, and this is like half, and we still have 200 people on here. So, you guys we'd appreciate it if you guys could fill those out for us.
So I actually have the live feed open on another computer here. It doesn't look like it's caught up to the font one just yet, at least on my end. So I'll refresh this and see. Maybe it has. So we got 44 responses here. Looks like most people like it, and no one hated it. a couple people have some better ideas, so we'll take a look at that. No one really had another, most people didn't have a better true type font. So some people would apply that to about a quarter of the people responded would apply a font change to a current project. And most folks would obviously just wait. So there's a few other responses here. So we'll take a look at those here this afternoon or tomorrow. So these will be open for the remainder of the day at least. So I appreciate your feedback. And again, 50 some, as JD said, this is your chance, and this isn't your only chance, as I mentioned earlier. Use the support request form if you have other feedback you'd like to provide about other things as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mark. I think we're about wrapping it up then.
Yep. Yeah, so that's going to conclude the live event for today for our CAD users group meeting. We will go ahead and stay on for an extra 5 or 10 minutes here, just in case we have any additional questions that come in. And also, as Matt and JD had mentioned, please, it would help us greatly in making the decisions for how we move forward with the pin tables and our font recommendations. So please fill those out.
I just noticed, sorry, looking at the questions, someone said they can't see the announcements to get to the links. So I don't know how to best describe that, but on your live event, on the right side, you should see an area where you can get to the live event Q&A, and that's where you're going to find, I guess, the links we've been sending out. I'm assuming that's what that announcements window that you're talking about, whoever that is.
Yeah, is there an icon you have to click that kind of pops that out on the right?
I just closed my live event. I thought mine was just there automatically.
Okay.
And then another question that came in was about the ground lines not looking solid. And I just want to mention that we are aware of that, and so is Bentley. We're definitely not the only ones to have said something about that. They are working towards a fix for that. Derek did show a workaround that they found, and I can't seem to find a video for that. That might not be posted on their wiki page. So I could probably track that video down and send it out. It had to do something with your name boundaries, changing your thickness of that name boundary. But just that has came up a couple times, so figured it was worth mentioning. Is there any more coming in? Regarding the earlier comment on other spreadsheets recording a username and password, I have experienced issues with the inflation spreadsheet and the historical bid data. Okay, thank you for that. I'll have to look at those, see if we can. I'm assuming it's hitting something off our SharePoint, but I think that's all I got.
Did we get all the questions answered then that was in the?
There was one about keeping just the utilities pen table. So maybe we want to keep that one, and then the one that colorizes other levels will just have a second one for that.
Yeah, I saw that comment come in.
And there's also a link to PowerPoint from, looks like LPA, that has a little blurb about the colors that should be used. It says purple for gas line, so.
Okay, we can review those and
Yeah, I want to
see
take
how
that.
the poll ends up with the form and go from there.
So if you guys haven't filled out any of those forms, please do so. It'll help us out. We will post this recording onto our wiki page. Give us a couple days to get that up there. Give us a couple days for the CPDs. And then, if you guys have any further comments, questions, feel free to reach out to us through the support request.
All right, we'll give you guys just a few more minutes for any additional questions, and then we'll be ending the live event for today. Thanks again for attending.